Well, hello and welcome to, and I'm not going to say the client catching podcast, and I'm actually going to say it because I thought I'd accidentally say it, but I am going to say hello, welcome to this special edition, this live relaunch version of the B2B Growth Think Tank. And if you are watching the replay, hello. If you are here live, hello. You're listening on the podcast in the future, hello, welcome. This is a exciting day for me personally. I have been looking forward to this for a while now, and it's been a little while in the making, and the planning and the thinking and all that kind of thing. So it's finally here. So what I want to quickly do is explain what we're going to do on this live broadcast, and a little bit about how it'll work, and then we'll start to bring on some guests, and maybe I'll have some time in between the guests sort of moving from one panel to the next to talk a little bit about why the podcast has changed and all that kind of thing. But really, this is all about helping people out there, business owners out there with challenges and things that are going on in their business, and we are going to place you on the virtual hot seat, and between me and the guests, we are going to be masterminding ideas and actionable ideas and solutions to exactly the kind of things that you're suffering and dealing with now, or conversely, when you want to maximize an opportunity that you have in front of you and you're not sure the best way of doing it. So it's really there to collaborate. It's to actually help people out there. And I want it to be a little bit different to, I guess, the way that the client catching podcast worked, which was fundamentally a pure interview show. And we will be having interviews, obviously bringing on guests and all that kind of thing. But ultimately, we are there to really have this as a repository of real world, actionable business ideas and solutions to challenges and things that are going on in business right now, so that people can come along when you're listening and you can actually hear some of the thoughts and the way that people think to solve challenges. Maybe some of the guests have had similar experiences in the past, and they are also able to basically give you the value of their wisdom and their experience. So that's essentially it. And ultimately, the mission of the show, it's quite simple. The whole sort of underlying current of the show is going to be to uncover the answer to a really big question. And I think a lot of us as B2B and service business leaders will be asking ourselves. And that is, with so many things that need improvement in my business, what and where should I focus my time and resources to achieve the maximum growth impact in the shortest possible time? So that's what I want to focus on. There's no hype, there's no false promises. It's actionable strategies and ideas to solving that kind of question right now. So basically, with this live stream relaunch, what I wanted to do is kind of jump into the pool head first and showcase the kind of format that we're on, that we're moving towards, and bring on some of the past guests from the Client Catching podcast that have really just helped me to shape the show as it is today, and really show some of my gratitude to those guests. And by the way, that is not to say that I don't value any of the previous guests that haven't been able to come onto this live stream, because nearly over 100 episodes now, it would have been a logistical impossibility to do it all. And I'm grateful for everybody that's been on the show, and the guests that are joining me today. They are going to share some amazing thoughts, ideas, experience, and wisdom to help somebody out there that has sent in some of these challenges that we're going to cover today. So what is going to happen with the show? If at any point you have a challenge going on, feel free to email into us at the show here at Think Tank. Can't even get my my own email address out. Think Tank at thinklikeafish.co.uk. And basically answer it in a way of thinking about, what challenge are you facing in your business right now that if you could solve it in the next 90 days would have the biggest impact in your growth? And if you're here live, please feel free to put some of those into the comments box, and we'll see if we can come to those as well. And don't forget as well, if you are listening to this and watching this before midnight on the 27th of Jan, don't forget there's also a giveaway contest where there are some fantastic prizes that have been put up by myself and some of the guests that are coming on. And you could literally win thousands of pounds worth of business growth prizes that could really sort of make an impact on the next 12 months and beyond. So go and enter that competition at thinklikeafish.co.uk /think tank contest. So that's enough of me rambling on. And I guess if you listened to the show previously, I have that tendency to do. So I'm going to stop myself right now. And what I'm going to do is bring on the first 3 guests onto the show. So without further ado, let us bring in Isar, Dov, and Alex to the show. How are you doing, guys?
Doing fantastic.
Awesome, awesome. Well, first of all, thank you ever so much for joining me. Some of us, we've spoken a little bit before since the first interview. Some of us, it's been a little while. But what I want to just quickly do is go through a little bit about what you've been up to over the last, since we last spoke and that kind of thing. And just as a reminder, Isar was featured on episode 70 of the Client Catching podcast, and that was where we were talking about big business thinking for small business growth. And Dov, we were on episode 22, and I think you are actually the earliest guest that is coming on, so you win that award. Unfortunately, there's no trophy. And we were talking about simple steps to a consistent flow of clients. And Alex, episode 44, 4 principles of lead generation success. And there was a lot of wisdom, not just from Alex, but from Batman, which if you want to go back and have a little listen to that episode, hear the wisdom of Batman as it applies to lead generation.
So you can see it on my chair as well and in the background. So you have to look on the show.
So let's start with Isar, because I know you've got a lot of different things going on that, since we last spoke, because you were sort of focused on the E-Tribe, but now you've got something new going on. Why don't you just give a quick sort of rundown of what you've been working on and what to expect?
Wow, yeah, I had too much going on probably on my plate since since you and I spoke on the show. But first of all, thank you so much for hosting me. I think what you're doing is a brilliant idea, as always. And I think it's going to provide real value to real people for real problems, which I find really cool, versus us podcasters trying to guess what our audience wants. Just ask them and bring them on stage. So I think it's really cool. So what I've been doing is I've launched a new business with an amazing guy called Pablo Gonzalez. And what we do is we build a relationship flywheel process for large companies. So what we do is we allow them to create and nurture strategic relationships at scale, leveraging a stage that we build for them. So the stage is basically a live show like this one, in which we host their dream clients, suppliers, best clients, and so on. And we use what is created through that show to create the most valuable pieces of content that we can from each and every one of those shows that we share with the relevant audience, and we build a community around it that because they're getting so much value, they come to the next show, there's more people, there's more value to create, there's more content, there's more community. And that's why we call it a relationship flywheel, because this thing creates more and more and more momentum as the business keeps on doing this. Our largest client is it's a $150 million company, and we've been working with them for a year, and they just had a record-breaking quarter ever in the history of the company in a pandemic year, in like the worst time possible. And now Q1, the beginning of Q1, has the best pipeline they ever had, and it keeps on growing. So we're having a lot of fun doing this because we're doing this as a business. We're just talking to interesting people with fun guests and fun co-hosts, and it's absolutely fantastic.
As you and I have discussed on more than one occasion, the value of just good conversations, building relationships, and collaborating. And yes, that is exactly part of the thinking behind the new format of the show as well. So that sounds all incredibly exciting. And Dov, I know you've sort of shifted focus ever so slightly since we had the conversation, sort of talking about your alchemy networks. Oh, there's the first live faux pas.
There we go.
There we go.
Here we go.
As we were talking,
everything's working. Everything's working just as it should. It's just up to up to me. Yeah, so I wouldn't say I shifted so much as narrowed my focus. So I'm focused, I'm narrowing our focus to profitablерelationships.com, where we were helping consultants as well as small firms or medium-sized firms, larger firms, to become what I think of as under the radar leaders in their industry by forming their own alchemy networks. So yes, it's also very much based on leveraging relationships. I think too many people are looking for scale. You can't scale relationships, at least not for real. You can use technology to support real relationships, but you cannot, you can't fake it. You really just can't replace a real relationship. The challenge, of course, is that if you're reliant on referrals and relationships, so referrals, they're unpredictable for most people, and relationships take a lot of time. So you do need to find ways of leveraging what you're doing. And becoming what I call an under the radar leader in your industry is just one powerful way. That's what we've been doing.
Yeah, and I listened to your interview with Joel Erway on his show, and he's a previous guest as well. And just if you get a chance, go and listen to that, because that will really bring out what Dov is doing, and it's incredibly powerful and very, very smart. So anybody that is in the business of basically high trust relationships to win business, it's definitely something you should check out. So definitely go and check that out. So Alex, what's Batman been doing?
Doing all right. I mean, I'm just trying to think when we last spoke, but
the last time we spoke, we were discussing how we were about to shed man tears over our respective eldest children nativity play last year.
I ruined Endgame for you. That was right.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, excellent. You obviously came to speak at my, we had an event booked in for March the 26th last year, and it was like literally 2 seconds after they locked us down, and then we rallied around and put an online event together, and you were literally not, I'd like to say, recovering from COVID. I think you were still pretty much knocked out from it, but you like a trooper did an amazing session for us. Dealing with stuff like that, which, God, that feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a funny one. Like the industry we're in, a lot of our sort of potential clients are in networks, and a lot of the networks came to us to facilitate a lot of online learning. So we've been doing a lot of coaching and educating as many people as possible. We still essentially do the same thing. We're just doing sort of more of it now.
Sounds good. And you've had a change in podcast title as well, isn't it? It's now the Avengers Ensemble is I guess a reference to that fateful day when you destroyed the end of Avengers Endgame for me. So thank you.
You're welcome. Still just as good the second time around.
Absolutely. I was still praying that it didn't actually happen in the way that you let slip, but it did. But never mind. Anyway, so what I'd like to do, and this is a slight sort of shift in the original plan that I had, and partly because of a comment that you made in the build-up, Alex, in that I've had a number of challenges sent in, and we're going to cover a lot of them. But there was one that stuck out particularly, and I know that Alex, you sort of suggested that you would like to be able to have a go at giving your input to this. And I think that on reflection, it's probably a question that I think that a lot of people have on their mind, but it's hidden and unspoken. And yet it's possibly the biggest challenge that anyone running their own business faces. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use this as a challenge for all three panels, because I think that everybody is going to go through this, and everybody has a story to tell around it and an experience that can help somebody out there that is going through something similar. So what I am going to do is I'm going to find the one that I am here. Here we go. So what this is. So essentially, first of all, I applaud the openness and the honesty of the person sort of giving this challenge. And essentially, this is a summarized version of it. But what this person said is, look, I know that coming from the owner of the business, this sounds terrible, but my biggest challenge is myself. I know I've got people relying on me to encourage and lead them, and I know it's important for my staff in any situation, especially right now with everything that's going on. But the thing is, I kind of just want a break. And honestly, I'm tired and I'm not motivated at the moment. How do you deal with the weight of it all when things get tough? So if there's anyone that's got a kind of an example or a story, or just some words that may well sort of help with this situation, because I know we've all been through something like this as running our own businesses. Is there anyone that sort of wants to jump in quickly?
I put my hand up before, didn't I? Now you've said it, actually the weight of it, you actually think, well, actually my answer is going to be rubbish. But I think the first thing to say is, like, I think everyone feels like that. And I found it actually easier doing this, kind of helping motivate the team and appear, because perception is reality. And like when you're working remotely with your guys, so when you're in the office, you know, it was like you can't hide anything. Whereas now you can jump on Skype and you can like not act, but you can, you know, you're only doing like a 10, 20 minute, 30 minute kind of, not like a pep talk, sound like David Brent, but I find it easier definitely remotely. And then all the cliches, like I've started doing, my daughter does kids cosmic yoga, and it's only a 10-minute thing. And there's a dance one. So we do a 10-minute, it's only a 10-minute, it's not like a full-on workout, but that, I'm buzzing after that. So, and then I have my team meeting in the morning. So I'm like buzzing from doing kids cosmic yoga. So everyone sees the best of me, rather than in the afternoon when, you know, I want to go like Hulk mode and smash something up. So I think like, and then one thing I've started doing, and my missus has a go at me for being David Brent with it, but every Friday, I always thank everyone on a voice message on WhatsApp, and just like let them know how much I appreciate all the work that they do, and that like we're all in it together, and just like that. But yeah, I think everyone experiences it. You should hopefully find it easier now if you are working remotely and doing it on Skype, and just being really positive. You know, you can be if times are tough, then you know you can sort of deal with that off the call. If you really want to motivate them, then you know, be really positive on those calls. I think that's kind of what I'm doing. I hope that's working. My team would probably say, I don't know. They seem happy. But yeah, I think we're all experiencing it, and we've all like, you know, some people have done really well, but I think everyone has had a period, definitely in this last year, where it's like seeing my pants. You know, what's going to happen, sort of thing. Everybody has.
And I think that it's a tough one, isn't it? Because regardless of whether the situation is as it is now, when you're the kind of top of the tree as is, it's always a little bit lonely, because all of that burden of responsibility lies on you, and people are looking up to you for that leadership. They want to feel confident, they want to feel secure in their jobs and all that kind of thing. And I guess even if it's just you, like you've got that devil on one shoulder and on the other, and it's the family members and all that kind of thing that are doing the same thing. So it's got to be tough when you are having that lull and that feeling of, I need a break, but I can't have a break. I need some space, all that kind of thing. Dov, Isar, have you got any sort of thoughts on how to deal or navigate this situation?
So for me, it's always having another person. And that could be, you know, 3 different options, right? Option number 1, it could be if you have a partner. And I highly recommend having a partner that complements you, because we all go through these ups and downs. We all do. And somehow the universe takes care of it, that it doesn't happen to the both or 3 or 4 partners, or many as you are, at the same time. So one is always going to be more positive than the others, and you just let him pull you back up. So that's probably the best option. That's what I try to do in my businesses. But if not, you still got to be able to vent and talk to somebody in an open way that understands who you are. And that could be your spouse, which again brings in a whole other baggage with it of like, maybe she's part of the reason that you're struggling and you need more time because your life-work balance is not that great, which leads to option number 3, which is hiring a professional coach or somebody that can hold you to the standards that you've set, that can push you when you need to be pushed, that can encourage you when you need to be encouraged. So in my eyes, it's like you said, it's not to go back to the fish analogies, but it's very lonely at the helm. It is. And if you are alone, it makes it very, very difficult. And if you bounce ideas off yourself when you're really down, well, guess what? They're not going to be great. So you got to find that other person that you have complete trust in, that can help pull you back up and make you see things in a bigger picture, because usually we're so down because we're in the moment. Like right now, things are really bad. But if like, hey, you've been running this business for a while, here's what happened. Look what's going to happen in 3 months. Like, oh yeah, So, but you got to have that other perception.
And Dov, I can imagine that certainly with your focus on creating networks and all that kind of thing, do you find that having that network is something, and I don't want to put words in your mouth about how you would actually sort of answer this this question and this dilemma, but do you find that the network side of things, of what you do, is something that is adding value in that unspoken way to the people that are actually implementing these networks?
Well, you did, like you said, you absolutely need colleagues and mentors and coaches to talk things through with. So I definitely believe, like, we just cannot. I don't care who you are. You cannot see yourself. You just, we all have blind spots. So I definitely agree with that. I would back up though. I'd say that if somebody is feeling burnt out, which I think was that. Did he say burnt out? Lost motivation?
I'm not sure if they used the word burnt out. Just tired. I need a break.
Tired.
It's kind of like, I just want a break. I'm tired.
Yeah, obviously we don't have the author here, but the questions that I would want to know, I would be asking is, I want to understand. Well, does he know what he wants, or she? Does he know what he wants? And if yes, then what? And is he on a path heading towards that? Because if you want A and nothing you're doing is taking you there, you're gonna be tired. It's exhausting. That's number one. If he doesn't know what he wants, which a lot of people really don't, even if at some point they didn't, they end up confused at some point. We all do. Sometimes it's easier to ask the question of, what do I not want? And then flip it around. So number one is, if you're feeling exhausted, burnt out, tired, like you're carrying the whole company, you've got to have a good reason. Why? What are you aiming for? What's driving you? So that's number one. Now, the other thing I would look at is, what kind of work is he doing that he shouldn't be doing? What kind of work is he not doing that he should be doing? So a lot of times you could be aiming for something. You could be heading in a direction that is valuable. Like, yeah, I do want to be doing this. That's where I want to go. However, your day-to-day is just so bogged down with the kind of work that you personally shouldn't be doing. Or, and you're just never getting to the kind of work that you should be doing, or not enough of it. A lot of us, the hard work, but the hard creative work, for example, it's energizing. And if all day you're just responding to emails, if all day you're just, going from fire to fire, you've got to ask yourself, well, how could I set things up so that I could be spending more of my time on the kind of work that energizes me? It could suck me, it could really suck me dry, but at the end I'm energized, like a good workout. And, and those are the two areas that I would look at. And now, keeping those two areas in mind, it's really kind of critical that you have conversations. That's to me, I see the conversations with colleagues, people on the same path, people heading in a similar direction, is really,
Oh, and there he goes. That's the that's the first of the live. There he is.
There we go. Yeah. Am I back? Yeah. So having conversations about what's my destination, what it is, what it isn't, and as well as what am I doing that I shouldn't be doing, what kind of work. Finding out how other people are handling similar challenges is absolutely. It's critical.
And I think that it's a big reason why I wanted to take this approach with the new show, so that people can hear that everybody has challenges. You're not unique in that you're dealing with a challenge. It may well be the nuances of the challenge is different to you, but we've all been through challenges through, both business, personal, and a lot of the time when you run your own thing, the two can blur and it becomes quite difficult to separate, and the challenges of business will bleed into home, or if it's the other way around, it can do the same, and it's not easy. And I think that, Dov, you sort of bring up a good point, is it's sometimes when you are at that point and you just feel like you need to step away, then maybe that's the best thing you can do, and just take that reflection. Have I climbed the ladder? Am I scaling the building that I even want to get to the top of? Or do I need to rethink this?
I think, can I jump in?
Sure.
So I'm actually in the middle of 2 days of doing exactly that, but I think it's something that has to be very structured, meaning you need to put times on the calendar once a quarter, every 6 months, definitely once a year, but preferably more than once a year, to step back, to say, I'm blocking now 2 days. Again, I'm lucky to have a partner that I can do this with another person, but again, you can do this by hiring a coach and then you have that other person, or with your best buddy that knows what you're going through. But go back and say, okay, here is where we said we're going to go. Is this still where we want to go? How do we restructure that concept? Does that align with the values that we set that we want to be as individuals and as a business? Yes. Okay. So we're still going in that direction. Okay. What does that mean? What needs to happen for us to get to where we want to go? And we always have a timeline for that, right? So for us, it's always 2 years. So where do we want to be as individuals and in the business in 2 years? And that's a more vague one. But then in 1 year, it has to be very, very specific. And then we work back from there to quarter to quarter to quarter. And the other thing that Dov said that is absolutely brilliant, you can't do everything on your own. Like, you just can't. And that's the most tiring thing. It's just this tedious day-to-day struggle of, and most people, especially in the beginning or in hard times, say, well, I can't afford to hire another person. But the truth is, you can't afford not to hire another person. Because you hire that other person, they take all the tedious work away. And yes, you're going to have a month and a half of harder work of training them and finding them and so on. But after that, all that burden of all the stuff that really pulls you down goes away. And you can free your mind to the reasons why you actually started the business. So I totally agree with what Dov was saying.
And I think there is, I do think that this will probably come through when I ask a question to the next two panels as well. But it is that the value of relationships, the value of actually having people around you and surrounding you, because I don't know, one of the taglines for this or anything like that's going to become is a rising tide lifts all ships, just to keep the fishing and nautical references going, right? Because as you say, you can't do it alone. It's impossible. You need the support. You need to empower others. You need not just to empower others just to do the things that they need to do to get their job done, but you need to empower them to support each other around them. And you need to make it okay to show vulnerability. And I think that goes through a cultural thing. I think it goes through both from a society point of view, but also from a business. If you have that culture of support and you don't make it, I mean, I've been in toxic environments in workplaces in the past, and to show any kind of vulnerability was just pounced on as weak. And it was horrendous. It was an awful environment. So my God, if somebody is in that situation, in that kind of environment, I just feel the utmost empathy and sympathy, because it's so difficult. But one of the key things, and Alex, you sort of touched on it a bit, is it's finding the fun. Just reminding yourself that, it's part of your life. It's not everything. Absolutely. Go play with your kids, make some time for yourself, do something fun. And my God, at the moment, it's incredibly difficult. We're all locked down. Alex, you're selling cupcakes out of, food carts and all the rest of it with your daughter. I'm doing, homeschooling, all the rest of it. It's hard to find that time for yourself, but you need to be able to just carve it out, even if it's to sit for 10, 15 minutes and read a book, watch a film, something. It just needs to, we all need that space. So thank you guys for that. I think that, this is a topic I think is very much on people's mind now, even if it's not being spoken about. So what I would love to do, though, is move on to the next one. And what this one is going to be, it's going to be a little bit more light, I think, and we'll bring it back to actual ways that we can get people moving and that kind of thing. So this is an interesting one, in that the person saying this is basically, they're saying, we launched a new service in early December, but it's not quite taken off as we expected, even though we know from our target market they need it and it would be transformational for them. When is the right time to call quits on this offer as opposed to persevering? I don't want to stop 3 inches from gold, yet at the same time, I don't want to pour too much time and resources into it if it's not going to bear fruit. So what would you sort of say about that? When is like flogging a dead horse, and when is actually you just need to tweak something and you need to actually just give it the time it needs? How about Alex? Go on this one.
Yeah, cool. So I guess it depends. Is it something that people are looking for, or is it one of those things they don't know, they don't need? So just like context of that. So if it's the market we work in, people search for, our clients, they search for mortgage help and advice. They're searching for it. So it's kind of like if you're ranking, you're getting traffic, people search for it, not getting inquiries, then they what's on if the content's not right or whatever. So I get the impression, just the way it was worded, that it was one of those ones where people don't know they need it, and they're sort of so it is going to be a longer burn. So looking at the softer metrics, like, are people actually reading the content that you are putting out there? What's the time on page or site or whatever, looking, we normally sort of have a look at those kind of softer metrics to get an idea. It's people are interested in it, but there's something maybe that's not making them pick up the phone. So it's kind of like, so I don't know if this person is running like remarketing. So if it's something that they don't know, they don't need, they're not going to make the decision on the first visit. So it's like, are you doing that remarketing, and are you addressing all the reasons why? Because a lot of the time, I think we know what we do is transformational for everyone. Like, as the same with every service, every business, we wouldn't sell it if it wasn't transformational. But it's letting do they know that? And I think sometimes we assume that they know too much as well. So it's like, have you treated them like a 16, 17-year-old that they know very little about the industry or the thing, and really simplified it and checked all those softer metrics, and then you would get an idea really that people are interested in it.
I think it's, obviously within this, it's difficult to really get the context, and we will obviously have to make some assumptions as to the underlying situation and circumstances. But I think you're right there. If it's something that people go out there, search for every day, and it's quite a well-known thing that people need, then it's hard metrics, it's hard numbers that you can maybe start looking at in terms of search volume, clicks, and all the rest of it. Certainly from if you're running an advertisement side of things. However, if it's something that has that longer, slow burn in terms of it requires a bit of education for somebody to understand whether or not this is actually something they need, if you need to uncover the problem for them, that kind of thing, then that's going to be a longer burn. So you actually have to have, I guess, gone back to your strategy and actually looked at, have you legislated for that within the planned strategy or the implementation of the strategy and the rollout, so that you can actually legislate for the fact that you are going to have a longer sales cycle if it's something that's brand new. I mean, Dov, have you got any sort of thoughts on that? Have you got examples of campaigns in the past where you've thought that it was about to plummet, and then you did a tweak and it took off, or things like that? What are your thoughts?
I just, again, it's kind of hard to know the details of the situation. So just generally speaking, I can think of one scenario where you definitely do not want to quit, but people often do, and two scenarios where you do want to quit and people often don't. One scenario where you would not want to quit is because it's hard. If things are hard, that's not a reason to quit. It's going to be hard. And what that means to me really is that it's just, it's requiring a lot more out of you than you expected, a lot more than you thought it would take. But there is some signs of progress. You do have these omens along the way that tell you, all right, stick it out, soon it's going to work. So, just don't quit. Two situations where you should quit and people often don't. Number one is if you gain more information, you acquire information that helps you realize that one or more foundational assumptions are no longer true. So for example, if you've been working really hard to get to get people into your steakhouse, advertising, marketing, and so on, and then you find out that this town you moved into and opened up a steakhouse, they're 90% vegetarians. Now, you just discovered that there's a foundational assumption that you were making that, it doesn't matter how good your marketing is, it's not going to work. So in that case, you quit. A lot of times people come across that kind of information, but it's usually not that blatant, and they ignore it. Keep pushing. That's not the time to keep pushing. That's not what we're talking about, where it's hard and do it anyway. That's a time where you realize, okay, we need to back up and start over. The other time when you do quit is when you realize, like we talked about in the first segment, you realize that you're going after something you don't even want. And I think we all have that kind of experience. You realize that, hey, I've just been pushing really hard for something I don't want. It doesn't mean you stop from today till tomorrow. Could be that you do, but it means that you have to think clearly and carefully about, okay, how do I get from this to something that I really want? In that case, also, don't keep going it just because you committed to it yesterday. That's the sunk cost syndrome.
Absolutely, and I think that there's also value in, I guess, what we've already covered slightly in the first one, and that is there is value then if you're kind of at that point where you're even asking this question. What about getting an outside perspective, an educated outside perspective that can take a look at it and maybe see if they can actually find that you are suffering from your blind spots and you cannot see maybe some of that obvious information that is literally jumping out at you. You know, you are in that vegetarian town and you've opened a steakhouse, which, you know, the fact that you've got just a couple of people in there would have been pretty impressive. You know, it's an outside perspective. You can't do it alone. I mean, maybe this is just going to become a theme. It's like, get somebody to look at it, have a look at either the metrics, have a look at the maybe some of the softer stuff. Go back and ask previous clients. Go back and ask people that and I'm assuming that they would have done this, because otherwise it is just coming from that place of, right, well, I just had a great idea and I am absolutely married to it and it cannot possibly fail. Well, you could be right, but, you know, like walking in front of a zebra crossing and not looking both ways in front of the speeding car and walking out, you'd be dead right. It's not necessarily that, you know, that way. So have you got any sort of thoughts, Isar, and on this, any sort of campaigns that I know you've run a lot of these sorts of things in the past, so I know you're going to have a great perspective. And the second technical
Here we go.
issue.
Me again. User error. I'm in a hotel and the coffee wasn't great, so I'm literally choking on the leftovers of the coffee. That's the reason I was muted, to be completely transparent. But so I'm a data freak. So let's even assume for a second that what the guy is writing is true, right? He did do proper research. He did interview relevant people. He did have a few panels and figure out this is really what the clients need. The problem that he's describing, and a lot of problems that we're facing, are big, ugly monsters. And it's very hard to approach with something practical when it's a big, ugly monster. And the way I approach it is I dissect it to its smallest possible component. And the only way to do that is having the data to do this. But I'm saying, okay, when you're saying it doesn't work, what doesn't work, right? So there is, I hate the word funnel because I think it takes away the whole relationship and livelihood of a business, but there is a user journey. So what in the user journey, in the client journey, doesn't work? Do people don't even know that you're providing this? Okay, that's one problem that you can address. Do people know what you're providing, but are they showing interest? Okay, they are showing interest. Very good. Okay, if they're showing interest, are they diving deeper? Do we actually have a call to what am I offering? How much does it cost? What's the benefit? Do I get any feedback from them on that? Okay, so there's all these steps from, okay, I have this great product to somebody's buying it that you can monitor very, very closely and then address them one by one based on the ones that are not performing, right? So now it's not, oh my God, I had this product, it's not selling. It's, oh my God, nobody's even getting to my website. I'm like, okay, then it could be a marketing and messaging problem. It's not my product is not selling. So it's really figuring out where are your weaker or weakest links in your user journey. But the only way to do that is to be able to obviously track them very, very accurately, which I highly recommend to everybody, to figure out how to track every single step. And they're like, okay, now let's address this. Once that's addressed, you're going to have the next weakest link, right? By definition. So then you address that and you address that. But the other thing is, like you said, if it's a new product or service, it's just a longer time to onboard people. And even when it's not, like even what we're doing, we've been doing for a year, but it's not a concept that a lot of people are doing. And it's a pretty high ticket item. And our sales cycle is 3 to 5 months. that's what it is. I can't change that. So I can say, okay, I give up after 3 months, but then I'm not going to have any clients.
I think what's also missing from this, obviously in terms of a context, is when they say it's not working. And maybe they mean it's not working because of their own set of expectations that they placed on it that may well have been, as we all tend to do, a little bit heightened or a little bit ambitious because we think we've got the world's best mousetrap and we just have to put it out there and the world will beat a path to our door. It doesn't always happen like that. We actually have to go at the client's pace, the potential customer's pace and all that kind of thing. And we actually have to accept that, it's like Mike Tyson says, we all have a plan until we get punched in the face. And the real world feedback happens when you put it into market. And that's when the real work starts. That's when, as you say, you look through your client journey, you look at the points if you are using that funnel, say, for example, how many people are you getting to visit a web page? How many people are then, if it's the typical funnel, opting in? How many people are blah, 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 blah. And looking for those points of the weakest link, the chain. Are people getting to a landing page and leaving? Well, there's something there. Is it is it the message? Is it the blah, 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 that kind of thing? I think that there is, sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. We can overestimate the success that something's going to have, and we can also underestimate the amount of time that it's going to take to either get things done, get traction in the market, and actually then sort of that flywheel effect, as you've referenced, it's like that takes time to go. But that's where I think that there's a lot of examples out there of people that have just stopped a little bit too early before that momentum has built enough. Alex, you'll probably know this ever so well. They'll come to you and say, oh, I gave Facebook a try, or I gave advertising a try, and it just didn't work for me. And I'm sure when you ask the question, well, how long did you give it a go? How often do you get somebody say, well, we tried it for a week?
Or I suppose it's more like what was the message? It was more sort of, it's not Facebook. Facebook's just delivery. I think we've got a Facebook question as well, which may lead on to it. But it's like doing the tech is the easy bit. The hard bit is the message and people need to make it. Because like I was just thinking as we were just talking, there's like products in financial services like life insurance, which is a no-brainer. Logically, everyone should have life insurance, but people don't. It's an absolute no, but people don't. Like I was talking to someone earlier about prepaid funeral plans. You'd save your family a lot of bother if you got one, but people don't. We're not logical. We're not logical just because it feels like a logical thing that is transformational for your client. Doesn't mean they're going to buy it. You've got to make them come to that decision on their own. I think a lot of the time when we market, we try and sell a bit too much rather than trying to get people to come to their own conclusions. So kind of explaining it rather than saying it, if that kind of makes any sense at all.
Yeah, and you're right. It comes down to the message. It comes down to really connecting. And what you sort of touch on there is actually, I'm not going to go the route of the Facebook question, because what you've brought up there is, it actually brings up one that I left off, but actually I want to bring up now, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot. It's like somebody was saying something along the lines of, I have a product that is inherently dull and uninteresting and people really, really need, but
it's not dull.
It's not interesting, or it's whatever. So how do you develop a message and content that actually appeals to people in that regard? And you deal with people that sell life insurance. You deal with funeral plans.
It's not. Well, like I hate. That's one of my pet hates when mortgage brokers say that mortgages are dull. They're not interesting. It's not. It's like if someone wants to buy a house, like they're really excited about wanting to buy that house, and they're really excited about knowing whether they can afford it or not, which makes it not dull. I think digital marketing is boring because I do it every day. And then I try and make it, I was just thinking last night, like I did a video and cut some like Avengers clips in it and tried to make it fun that way. And it comes back to the earlier question about the guy being tired. Like if you try and make your marketing a bit fun, it's more interesting. And then we were talking about energizing yourself as well. It feels like all these problems that everyone have are like really interlinked. I've gone a bit off track there. I've lost my train of thought, but yeah, essentially. It's dull to you, but not necessarily to the person buying it, and it's not the product, it's the experience, like it's the thing that they're excited about. It's not the mortgage, it's the house. It's not the there's a cliche about buying the drill to make the hole, and that's for the not for the nail, it's not for the picture, it's for the enjoying the looking at the picture in your house sort of thing. But you're selling a drill.
And Dov, I know that you, like, one of the first things that I was that grabbed my attention around you is the way that you describe how to create that, that wonderful message in terms of a message that attracts your ideal clients in that way. If you were working with someone that had, this dilemma, I have something that I think is inherently dull or not interesting, or people need but they don't really want to think about, how would you go about thinking about crafting that kind of message, and then the kind of content that would result afterwards? What sort of process would you take someone through, without the context, but obviously just the process?
Yeah, well, the question that we're always looking to ask is, what are the problems that you can help solve? What are the results that you can enable? Because the first job of any marketing is to get the attention and the interest of an ideal client. And there are only two things that get people's interest. And that's if you talk about a problem they have and don't want, or if you talk about a result they want and don't have. Now, if you're not seeing, obviously, what is that problem people have and don't want, what's the result they want and don't have, that you really just, makes it clear to you, like, oh, that's the message, that's the story. You got to have conversations with people who've bought it, either from you or from others, to get an understanding. You've got to uncover what that story is. What is the problem they had that led them to buy? What was the result, the experience, the change, the transformation that they wanted that led them to buy? And I think that what you and Alex were saying is just spot on. It's like maybe mortgage is boring, but there's something behind that is very exciting. I imagine that the result they want is to be able to go through the purchase of this home with as little hassle as possible, with as few surprises as possible. Everybody can connect with the experience of, sailing down the road, at top speed, enjoying the wind in your hair, and suddenly,
some of us can enjoy the wind in our hair.
That's true. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true. Thanks for reminding me.
Adam can enjoy the wind in his hair in this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the point is, of course, something unexpected happens. You get a flat tire or whatever it might be. The story with the mortgage broker is just to ensure that you get there smoothly, that you don't have unexpected surprises. Like that's what you're selling. Mm-hmm. You're selling not just in the process, perhaps, but also over the life of the mortgage, that you're going to have terms that you can live up to, or whatever it might be. That you're going to have somebody that you can call up and anytime, like whatever it might be. I would guess that for many people, the problem they have and don't want, result they want to have, lies in that direction.
Absolutely, and it's really it. I mean, the entire sort of ethos and philosophy around what I do, the whole think like a fish thing and all the rest of it, is really deeply understanding your ideal client, because ultimately they pay your bills, they pay your staff. So don't just go out and guess. You've got to think, but you've got to know them. You've got to really understand them. You've almost got to be able to, it's kind of the Atticus Finch type of thing of walking around, being able to walk a day in somebody's shoes. It's really understanding the thoughts and the feelings so that you can actually paint that picture of that future, the result that they want, or the problem that they have, they no longer have, that kind of thing. Because, it's a sense of play with a message. I mean, I try and do it with the whole, fishing puns. You either love it or you hate it. But I think a lot of people find it a little bit difficult because we're told to do this. We're told to think of this. And then certainly with things like mortgages and life insurance and all the rest of it, some people can feel that it will almost get a little bit cliche, a little bit, we give you peace of mind. We give you this, that, and the other, right? And it's difficult to come up with a message that is actually really, really, truly different and cuts through the noise. And I mean, Isar, do you have any sort of experience around a situation like that may you just really want to do something that's different, or have something that's different, even though it's kind of easy just to go with the status quo?
So I'll say a couple of things. I'll answer your question afterwards. So if I forget, remind me, because there's something I really want to say that kind of connects a few things that we've all been talking about. But whatever you're selling, doesn't matter if it's a product or a service, big or small, long or short time frame, you're selling a better version of the other person that's buying it. A future you. That's what you're selling. And even if it's dull to you, what you're really selling is a new status, right? And I can give a stupid example, right? A coffee maker, right? Because we all have our coffees right now. Like, okay, I want to sell a coffee. Well, it's a coffee maker. There's like 1,000 other coffee makers. No, you're not selling a coffee maker. You're selling it's just like the enjoying looking at the picture example that Alex gave. I'm selling the party where there's 20 people at the house and like every other person comes back and said, dude, your coffee's awesome. That's what you're selling. You're selling a feeling and you're selling a belonging into a new status. The new status could be new friends, could be new accolades, could be new whatever. But you're not selling the thing. You're selling the feeling that the thing can give the person. And what you said, Adam, that really connects to that. If you got to understand your client and know what that feeling is. What is the aspiration? What is the thing that they want to belong to, that they want to be, that this thing that I'm selling can get them towards? And this is what you're selling. So, the regular structure of every sell message, right, should be the first part is talks about emotion. It has nothing to do with your product. The second part has to help somebody explain why they need it, right? So, or how they're going to pay for it, like the logic aspect of our human brain that always acts on emotion first and then finds ways to explain it, right? So the coffee machine, we're like, oh my God, I'm in this party and everybody loves the coffee. Yes, definitely, I want that. I'm like, oh, it's only $29 and there's one button, so you don't have to be a genius to operate it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer then. And then the last thing is really the call to action. And the beauty about the call to action, if you do this right, you connect this back to the first step, right? So don't say, oh, buy now. Said, get this so you can be, the best coffee in town. Everybody wants to party with you. So Absolutely. If you can put this together, now you have a framework that works for anything. There is no dull thing because you're not selling the thing. You're selling the emotion that the thing can generate, which by the way, could be good or bad, right? If you're selling life insurance, you can play on the negative side. I don't like doing this, but I've seen people doing tremendous things with going to the darker side of people like, oh my God, I can't imagine putting my family through something like this. Of course, I got to act. You're still addressing emotion, helping people justify it with logic and giving them a call to action that reminds them the emotion.
Yeah. And, there's that old adage of, you really have to poke the pain and all the rest of it. Yes, there's a place for that because otherwise, unfortunately, the psychology of us human beings, we don't necessarily react to things. It's why the whole Fleet Street saying was, if it bleeds, it leads. You don't see positive news on the front page, you see negative. It's kind of like that's what gets the attention. But I don't know. I think that sometimes it can be overplayed, certainly with in the negative and the pain point and all the rest of it. And often it can actually be detrimental to the business because you end up, if you're just appealing to the pains, you get desperate people. Whereas if you actually look at the opportunity and you focus on the growth that somebody can achieve, then you get a different type of mindset. For sure. That's what I found. I don't know if it's something that has been found by everybody else, but I just want to sort of bring up we've got really great nuggets. Tobin, who's going to be on panel 3, great nuggets that selling a better version of you. It's such a powerful lever for all parties involved, and I think that is exactly what I think everybody is getting at. It's about selling that better version, the opportunity. Yes, there's a place to actually pull out the pain when you're talking about the thing that you do, because ultimately you need a problem to go and look for a solution. Like it has to actually exist. So it makes sense to at least bring it front and center, but really you want to focus on that better version of yourself. What happens as a result? What is the afters? How does their life look like? All that kind of thing. So yeah, I think if you're struggling with finding ideas for what to say, how to say it, create your marketing, create your content, just spend a little time thinking like the fish, spend a little time in their head, understand what a day in their life is like. And maybe even, some of the easiest content that you can create around this sort of thing is actually featuring the people that have got the result that you help them get. Feature them. talk to them, interview them, show them off. That's a really simple way of doing it, because ultimately we cannot do this alone. So why not involve the actual clients that you help get those results in helping more people achieve the same result? I think there's something in there that. So what I want to make sure is we keep to time. So I cannot believe that is almost the top of the hour, and you guys have been awesome. So thank you ever so much. What I want to quickly do is just make sure that everybody has a chance to go out and find more about you guys, and really just get to know you a bit better, because that's why I want to bring you back on. So start with Isar. It's BeTheStage.Live is your new website, isn't it? Is there anything to know specifically?
Yeah. So first of all, if you want to know about Be The Stage, definitely that's the place to go. BeTheStage.Live. There's a lot of content there and ways to connect with me. I'm lucky that way that I have a name that nobody else has on the planet. So if you go to LinkedIn and look for Isar Meitis, that's me. There is no other. And it means I need to spell and pronounce my name every time, but it's worth it because I'm the only Isar Meitis.
Well, I butchered it on our first interview. So.
and the eTribe still exists. So if you go to the eTribe.com, and if you want the eTribe podcast, then the eTribe podcast on any podcast player, or the eTribe.com/podcast, which makes sense. So all of these places, I love to connect. I love to share ideas like this. This was absolutely brilliant. I thank you so much, Adam. This was amazing.
Right, pleasure to have you. And if people missed the first one, a little known fact is Isar used to be an F-16 fighter pilot. So that kind of makes him like the coolest guy in marketing in my book. But there you go. Dov, profitablерelationships.com. Anywhere else to find out? What can they find?
Well, we just have a little a free training over there, profitablerelationships.com/think tank, in your honor, your new podcast. If anyone wants to go, we put it up there. And that's really focused on helping people become under the radar industry leaders. It kind of lays out the whole idea, the whole plan, by building what I call an alchemy network. And I mean, there's a lot of consultants and experts and firm owners and business development people. They are already doing a lot of these things, this so-called relationship marketing for free. This is actually a way that you can turn a lot of what you're doing for free into a revenue stream. And that's something that is very exciting to a lot of people. So profitablerelationships.com/think tank.
Awesome. And definitely check it out, because the strategy and the idea behind it is incredibly powerful when you apply it. So Alex, where's Batman hanging out these days?
In the Batcave. Well, there's like a gazillion Alex Curtises, so I'm not sure who's winning on that. There's ridiculous amounts of them. I'm on LinkedIn, and we obviously only work with one type of client, so I'm probably not that interesting to everyone listening and watching. But follow me on LinkedIn if you like Marvel and you want to see videos with Avengers in them.
Awesome. And don't talk to them if you like to find out the ending of your movies all on your own.
Alex, your focus is financial advisors, financial planners.
That's correct. Yeah. Absolutely.
That
awesome.
Yeah. Well, and there's a need for good help for them. I don't.
Yeah, definitely.
I usually say I'm not the right one for you for financial planners. So now it's good to know that you exist.
Well, this is a prime example of part of the reason why I wanted to A, do this live version of the event, but B, where I'm going with the show itself. And that is, if we can connect other people to each other, then there's all sorts of opportunities that can actually sprout from it and grow from it. Because certainly, what we covered at the very beginning, it can feel quite dark at times and tough and all the rest of it, but there is opportunity to be had. And normally the opportunity comes from connecting with others and actually putting two heads together. I think in the one of the promo things, two heads are better than one, but what about 10? What about, an entire sort of fleet of other client catching captains of their own business ships, right? The puns are still going to happen. I don't, but
I need a run, but
absolutely.
I apologize. I do need a meeting right now.
Yeah,
so let's keep everybody. Thanks for having
me.
Pleasure meeting you.
I am going to let you all go, and then I'm going to bring everyone on. So Alex, thank you ever so much for joining me. Well
Congrats
done
on the
Dov,
launch,
for
mate.
catching me from going on, and I'll bring on the next panel. And it's great to see you all. Thank you ever so much for being here, guys. Have a
Thanks,
good
Adam. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Cheers. Right, so that was fun. I enjoyed that. So yeah, so far I don't think we've had too many technical issues, and it is about to be time for the second panel, and I'm going to bring on my guests as I can see them eagerly waiting there in the green room. But just before, I just want to kind of summarize a little bit about that, and really, I think what we've talked about there, it really helps to, I guess, illustrate why I've done what I've done with the podcast, and that is, there is such an importance and such a power in collaboration and actually lending a hand to other people and other business owners. And even if you don't ever actually speak to them, us there having that conversation, I hope, my hope is that somebody listening, and whoever sent in the, the person that sent in that first question has heard that and got something that they can actually take, because sometimes we just need to hear it. We have to hear and actually understand that we are not alone. We're not the only ones going through these sorts of circumstances and situations. And I think that it's all about that teamwork, that collaboration. Even if you're not the person, even if you are not working directly with people, I feel like I've collaborated over 100 episodes now with people that I'd never met. And now, we're bringing on another 9 guests onto this show that we are connecting again, and we are having this conversation, and it's energizing. For me, it's energizing. It's fantastic. And I really do want this to be something that is a big feature of the show. It actually genuinely connects. We collaborate, we bring people on, we actually help solve the problems, because we cannot do it alone. So that's it. I do think that this whole collaboration piece, it's like the antidote to isolation. If anyone is out there feeling that, that's what we can do with it. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox because I can see my guests absolutely waiting patiently in the green room. So who we have on next? We have Chris Bruno from Social Inc., Amy Woods from Content 10X, and Jake Ulkas from Destined to Scale. So guys, if you are ready, I am going to bring you on. So please do not say or. Hey guys. Hello. So I heard Chris for sure. Jake.
I was muted. Good morning.
Awesome. Good morning, Jake. It is morning for you, isn't it, at the moment? So we're
yeah. Great way to start the
day. So I'm not sure how much of the first one you caught, if any, but it's it was I'm looking forward to this one, especially in light of what we've gone through. And what I just want to quickly do is start off is just sort of, go through. And as I say, each of you have been on the show before. I think, let me remember. So Chris holds the title for most featured guest, because you came onto the show once, and then right at the beginning of this whole COVID situation, we did a bit of a collaborative sort of social Zoom call with Travis Ketchum as well, and we got Zoom bombed, didn't we? That was fun.
So much fun.
that was a shocking one.
So yeah, very, very horrible content that was shared in that call.
So yeah, Chris, you were down there at episode 34, the big lie with social media marketing, and that Zoom bombing episode was a number 58, where we did manage to get onto a different platform and complete it. And Amy, you were on episode 64, the smart way to use content to reach clients, have more impact and grow your business. And Jake, you were episode 23, find the hidden equity in your business. And I know I keep banging on, but we spoke a lot about selling the sawdust in your business. And I've loved that term ever since I heard it. So what I want to do quickly is find out what you've been up to since we last had the conversation on the show. And what's going on for you? What's exciting you guys? How about we start with Chris?
Okay. Well, since we did that Zoom bomb call, obviously when we were all in our first ever lockdown, and then we've basically been in and out of lockdowns. So I actually got stuck in France for 7 months last year. I say stuck as if it was a bad thing, but it was pretty good. And to be honest with you, probably like most people, it's been an up and down bit of a roller coaster ride, right? There's been clients that we wanted to help and we've done everything we can do to help, but obviously money issues, their own income streams literally drying up overnight. So we did what we could to support them. And then at the same time, we've been very lucky to work in a couple of industries where they haven't really been affected or haven't been adversely affected. So we managed to kind of help them to continue to build on social media, content creation, basically just continuing to get their message out there. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we try and solve for people is sharing more, being more human, being more social on social media. So that's about it, really. To a certain extent, business as usual now, or at least that's how it feels, kind of coming up to a year into the COVID lifestyle. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Cool. Yeah, it's as you say, it's the roller coaster. It's the up and down, and yeah, we've all got our own stories that's happened to us during this time. So yeah, it's a reality, isn't it? So Amy, how's things been for you? I know that you and I are in a similar situation with the homeschooling and all the rest of it, and we've exchanged sort of emails at interesting times of the day. So what's been going on for you outside of that? How's the business going? What's new with you?
Yeah, so last time we spoke, it was the depths of lockdown as well, and here we are again. But what's been going on, I guess, quite similar, really. So we've been trying to stay as agile as possible to respond to our customers' needs through, the roller coaster that has been the past year. I guess making sure that we use that competitive advantage of being a small creative agency versus the bigger giants, and we can respond quickly. So we've been, working hard on that. Again, similar, we've had clients that have left us, businesses as, almost gone overnight, or they're certainly experiencing some quite severe trauma. And we've tried to support them, but they haven't been able to stay. But then we've had an influx of new clients. There's lots of opportunity at the moment as well. So we've been making the most of that, supporting the new clients that have come on board, understanding their business, focusing a lot on LinkedIn from a content perspective, as well as podcasts and video. And yeah, really just continuing to, grow, steady the ship, a few steps back, few steps forward as it is in business. But yeah, we're still happy and things are still going well.
Awesome. And Jake, just before I get to you, I want to share with you a fan comment. That's not going to put you under any pressure. Wow, a great line at Line Up. I know Jake Ulkas, and he's awesome. So yeah, with that, to put you under pressure, Jake, I know that you've been up to quite a number of new things. So and one of them being with your better half as well. Yes. So why don't you tell us about what's been going on there and how that's working out?
Yeah, first of all, I pay Tobin to say stuff like that on every panel that we work on. So good job, Tobin. Yeah, I think last time we talked, I don't know if Ashley, my wife, was fully folded into the business at that point. I think we had collaborated on some stuff in the back end. But yeah, so we had since we kind of, when COVID really kind of hit, I actually started getting inundated with people trying to figure out how to one, transition their business from the model they had, and they're trying to play catch up. Some were actually trying to get ahead of the 8 ball, but a lot of people are playing catch up, and they're trying to basically figure out. My expertise is kind of, again, finding the hidden equity. What do you do really, really well? How do we actually remove complexity from your business and machine in order to focus on like the true impact that you have, and then build new offers and fulfillment systems around that. So it's about increasing profitability, lowering hours of fulfillment. Perfect for COVID. So a lot of people were actually trying to figure out how to transition their business with letting people go, brick and mortar moving to online, online with larger stuff that had clients that were being affected by COVID, that were losing clients and trying to figure out how to make more money. My wife and I, at that point, we both have long corporate experience and brand building and everything, and working with agencies and owning agencies. So it kind of was natural progression for her to kind of fold in and us to kind of do that together. So we put out an offer and changed around the business a little bit, and that's what we do. So we are a husband-wife team, which is kind of, during COVID, working together, living together, 3 young kids, spending a lot of time together, but it's been great. It's absolutely been great. And we've been able to launch some new stuff, and what we call is kind of like making success accessible, really kind of focusing on what we consider to be a mini mastermind, which is our Destined to Scale. And really it's kind of a way for people trying to figure out how to build those signature offers and really kind of create a better machine of their business without needing to go out and then drop, multiple 5 figures to get the kind of support and community support from other really high performing individuals. And it's been great. I mean, just been massive success with it, and people have been loving it. And it's been life changing for us and our dynamic, as well as the people we're working with. So it's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've all been sort of forced into that tight space with all our family and our kids and all the rest of it. But you decided, obviously, to go one better and put the added stress in with it and all the rest of it. But it's great to hear that it's working out nicely. And I think that certainly right now, what I'm hearing in what you're doing is kind of like giving people potentially an opportunity to pivot from what they were doing pre-COVID and all the rest of it, and actually giving them that kind of clear path and framework to follow that will allow them to do that pivot, that will allow them to adjust to the realities of working in the kind of environment that we are now. So absolutely, definitely go and check out what Jake's doing. So what I want to sort of go on to now is the first panel. What we did is, and we had the conversation via the messenger, and Alex sort of put his hand up and said that he'd like to answer one of the questions that was in the third panel. And I've actually thought that this is a good thing to bring into all 3 of these panels. So I'm going to start with a question, because in light of the situation that's happened, and there's a lot of people out there that have this unspoken challenge, really. And I want to bring it front and center, because I actually think that if you're in this situation, or even if you're kind of going this way, nothing else that we're going to talk about here is going to matter. So it's all about the one where, it's the kind of burnout one, and I'll repeat it so that we can, people haven't listened to the first one. But the person has sent this in saying, I know, coming from the owner of the business, this sounds terrible, but my biggest challenge is myself. I know I've got people relying on me to encourage and lead them, and I know it's important for my staff in any situation, but especially right now. The thing is, I'm kind of just want to break, as honestly, I'm tired and I'm not motivated at the moment. How do you deal with the weight of it all when things get tough? Chris, do you want to have a pop at this one? What would you say to someone if they were talking, if they came to you and said this?
So the first thing is, you're not alone. So literally 2 weeks ago, I sent a message to my team saying, you're not going to hear from me for a while. And I bailed out of Slack, and I went and had 5-6 hours completely to myself, middle of nowhere, doing nothing. Doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's, you need to accept the fact that actually when your body starts feeling like that and your headspace starts feeling like that, there is no magic cure. You can try and do 20 jumping jacks and see if that helps make you feel motivated. But the chances are it's your brain telling you that you need to just bugger off for a bit and take a little bit of time. And even if it means doing nothing, go watch a film, go turn your phone off, just do whatever makes you feel good and makes you feel relaxed. We often forget about like energy levels, and we push and we push and we push. And then before we realize it, like it just keeps going down until you've got no energy left. And if you're not refilling that, I think then you're basically screwed. And I watched the first panel and I loved the answers they gave. And I felt that they were all like super tactical based. You need to review what you're doing in your business. You need to figure out what's going on. The reality is, when you're in that position, you've got no chance of doing any of those things yet. And I think all of those things are hugely important. And yes, you should be reviewing your business on a quarterly basis, working on it, not just in it. All of those things, 100% agree. But at that moment when you're feeling like that, and this year, I've had a ton of conversations with people, everyone is feeling the same way. They have one day where they're literally up doing press ups on their way to their little home office studio or whatever. And then they get into it and they hammer out a 12, 15-hour day, and they're, yes, champions of the world. And the next day they're like that, I don't even want to bother. Or they'll skip out on meetings that are non-essential or whatever it is, just because they're like that. Wow. So we're all having these fluctuations, these ups and downs. So I think first and foremost is that, one, take that time because you need it. It's your body's way of saying to you, do something else, refill the batteries before you come back and try and tackle this. And then the second part would be as well, it is tough and you need to be there and you need to be at the top of your game for your staff. But your staff are also human beings. 95% guarantee you that most of them are having similar thought processes at the moment. So actually being honest about it, identifying it, talking about it openly, it shouldn't be seen as a sign of weakness. This is a case of mental health being seen as a weakness. It's not anymore. We're all talking about it more. We're more open about it. I'll share on here, and I don't mind saying it. Since end of February last year, I've spoken with a counselor on BetterHelp, the app, every week. It's phenomenal what it's done for me. And it's given me exactly what the first panel talked about. Somebody as a sounding board who isn't in my line of work, who isn't doing what I'm doing, who's completely distanced from what I'm going through, but that can make me think about things in a way that I never would have thought about otherwise, that will stop me and say, well, what about that? And you go, oh yeah, I didn't really think about it. So all of these things, you know, sorry, go on, Adam.
No, I was going to say, like, first of all, I'm going to have to make note of that app because I've not heard of that. And if that is something that's been transformational for you, I'm sure there will be a lot of people out there that will also find it. If you could pop that in the comments, the link to that, because that would be incredibly helpful. Second of all is, I think that if people have seen the video from the previous one, and I'm not picking on you here, but they will see a different version of Chris because you have slimmed down. Like, not that you're a big guy, but you've slimmed down. You have put yourself first. I think you were saying that, you know, you're not drinking the alcohol, you're looking after your body, you're looking after your mind and all that kind of thing. And that's so important. Like, sometimes we just don't necessarily connect the two. So you've been documenting your journey on that as well. And I think that is something as well, I think, that can help. You can actually just put it out into the world and show people this journey. I think that's incredibly valuable too. So Amy, when it comes to this sort of situation, I mean, whether you've been through it yourself or you know people that have, is there any way of sort of thinking about this that might sort of help someone as they're going through it from your point of view?
I think it sounds like a lot of it's been said already in terms of what I would do, but I completely agree in terms of I think you do need to just carve out that headspace. You can't immediately try and solve a problem like this if you're feeling tired and struggling. I think you need to take a break, and I completely relate to this. It's probably not a coincidence that we're going through a pandemic and, you know, all the challenges that we've all had. I think everybody's tired and everybody's struggling. For myself, you know, all the usual holidays that we would have done last year, the times when I truly recharge, take a break, everything was cancelled. So it was just constant work. Probably had 5 days off last year, combat of the whole year. And so I'm just saying I can relate, and to not go too hard on yourself when you look at what's going on in the world right now. I've heard of BetterHelp. I know people who've used it. So things like that, counsellors. I guess in terms of what I've done when I've been in this situation, just very specifically though, it's the sounding board. So I guess I felt like this about May last year. And from a business perspective, I booked in a half-day session with a business coach that I really, you know, admired and had worked with and was a client of ours as well at Content 10X. I did a half-day session where I knew the as-is of my business. I knew the to-be of what I thought it should be like. And I needed some help to really take a step back and work out what the paving stones were to get from where I was to where I needed to be to make things easier and better. So I think from a practical point of view, perhaps working out, you know, it's so important, the word team. There's a team there. There's people there that you can help. And if you're tired and struggling, how are the team structured? What are you doing? How can you delegate? Do you need to do a little bit of a restructure? All that kind of stuff. Work it through with somebody else and work out the steps to what you think would make things better and easier. And I guess, you know, that you're not alone, and don't try and fix it alone. But yeah, be practical and go easy on yourself as you try and work through it.
The value of an objective perspective can be truly transformational in the quickest time that you just don't realize, because we can be so close to things we can't get out of our own way. And so actually finding someone that you, as you said, admire or you trust, or you maybe have worked with in the past, and getting them to come in and just take a look at things, just like force yourself to get away and have someone else look at it with you. Massively beneficial. And you're right as well, sort of, you know, thinking, right, just some light relief. We haven't had the holidays. This whole situation, I think, has literally just been it's been a tax on people's fun. Like everything that we did is, you know, do as human beings to let off steam, to, you know, this world's crazy and fast enough as it is, with, you know, it's supposed to get easy with technology. Well, it's nuts. It's just got faster, and all the stress that comes with that, and we're not able to escape. So those holidays, those breaks, the kind of, you know, the downtime, it's just not happened. And that is really difficult. And you know, as a fellow parent and in the UK, one of my things that has helped at the moment is listening to the podcast Lockdown Parenting Hell. I'm not sure if you've heard it, but it's Josh Widdicombe and Rob Beckett, two comedians, two parents. They bring on famous comedians. It is hilarious. It really does make you think that you're not alone. So anyone out there that's a parent and you haven't heard of that and listened to it, seriously, do yourself a favor. There's about 80 episodes and you can binge and laugh, and brilliant. So Jake, how are your thoughts sort of going on this after hearing what?
I mean, I think, a lot of it again has been covered. I think what we kind of see, I mean, everyone's kind of in reactionary mode. And, you typically, as you're building a business, you kind of tend to be in reactionary mode. Even if you think you're planning, you kind of react. And that's why we end up, going off and starting businesses and becoming entrepreneurs, only to work twice as much in some cases, So I think, and like you said, like you might go off and do some push-ups and take a walk and kind of clear your head and then go have a 15-hour day and really just knock it all out. I kind of view that as kind of almost like a manic response, and it goes in these waves. And then the next day you're just drained again, So that in itself is kind of not really solving the problem. It's kind of, putting, I guess, Band-Aids on the issues. So what we kind of do, and we do on ourselves, and we're very deliberate about it, and we try to push our clients to do the same thing. But we always kind of start with like, what do you want your day to look like first? And then block out like that day. So we do a lot of time blocking. You have morning, we have kids. So morning routine, we want to be able to do this, right? And we don't want to have anything impede on that time. At dinner time, we want to be able to do this. We want to be able to take an hour and a half walk a day. You want to be able to, take, 2 Fridays off a month. We start with really kind of the life that we want. And then based upon the gray areas that are left over, that's where we actually design the systems and the process in those gray areas in order to actually manage the business that we want to lead in order to give us that life. So it's almost kind of like, think like the profit first kind of mentality towards finance. It's almost kind of like personal first. And then the business actually is developed around that to support that. And that kind of actually makes it to where you're extremely deliberate about your day. You have to be, you have to put those no-goes on it and protect it, or else what's the point? But I think that kind of slowly over time kind of tends to get you out of that reactionary mode. So we're not having those manic things. And of course, things creep in, fires happen, things happen that you have to react to. But it's just, I think even having a more deliberate approach to how your life works, then the business to support it, it changes the way you kind of go about it. It has for us. And then as far as like you're talking about talking with people, I haven't done the apps or anything like that. It sounds fantastic. I'll look at it. But we actually do, we started actually paying for like office days with a coach that we really like. And that's just, again, just like you said, can't read the label from inside the bottle. We need to reset. We need to make sure we're on it. We make sure that we're kind of still heading towards our goal. And it was so good for us that we started offering it as well. And you don't have to be a client. You can just, hey, like, I just need to talk to someone and I kind of like the way you think. And I need a fresh outlook. Am I going right? And now, those kind of things, if you're not a client or someone, we're pretty cognizant of the fact that we can't go too deep and give you a bunch of stuff. So we keep it pretty general and really kind of just talk about what their goals are and whether or not we see that they're set up for it. But, you can cause some damage getting in there and messing around with stuff if you don't have those origin points. But it's good just to have conversations. I mean, that's kind of what it's about. But.
And I think, even if you don't go deep with people or anything like that, one of the big things that I think that we sometimes forget is being heard can really, really make a difference. Somebody gives you like that very focused time when they listen and focus on you, because in a normal everyday life, certainly with kids and family and all the rest of it, you just get lost. Sometimes you feel like you're at the you push down the pile, and that's everybody in the family. It's not just one person. Yeah. And being able to give that focused attention, like that can be incredibly valuable. Like actually being seen, actually being heard, and I think the value of other people.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny in those office days. I mean, really what we try to focus on is just asking better questions. So it's not really like telling them, giving them responses. It's more of asking just better questions, like multiple layered questions. And they typically end up telling themselves what they really are kind of looking for and getting there, because you have it. I mean, something's wrong. So you have an answer there. You just need to, surface questions, get surface answers, you don't get anywhere. So we that's what it typically happens. If we don't have true like knowledge of exactly what's going on, it's just, like I said, asking better questions and listening and helping them kind of find their own answers. So,
and it's certainly a theme that's come across the first panel, this panel. But to be honest, it's a theme that has gone throughout almost every episode that I've done of the previous version of the show, and that is the importance of outside help, mentors, coaches, all that kind of thing. And it's getting that outside perspective. It's having people there to ask you the questions, either that you don't know to answer, because if you don't know the right question to answer, how are you going to find the solution? But also ask you the questions that you're scared to ask yourself, because somebody else will ask them, but in a way that is going to sort of help you really get to the core of an issue. So I think that's a thing that has always come up on the show. It's so valuable, the value of having just that other perspective and somebody that you can trust to share that with as the person that's running the show. So thank you ever so much, guys. I know that it's something that is incredibly it's prevalent now. So what I want to come on to with the next one is, let me find it. So this will be an interesting one, considering everyone here is very used to working with clients and all that kind of stuff. So somebody sent this one in, and I think this is a challenge that we can all empathize with, especially if it's a large client. But they've sent in this challenge that says, I'm thinking of firing our biggest client because they're constantly picking at everything we do for them. They treat us like robots and they want everything on the cheap. Now, my staff, they don't like working with them. It's a drain on morale, but my business partner thinks it's a bad idea in this climate, as we need to plug the hole they'd leave within a couple of months. How would you guys handle this? So, Amy, why don't we throw that one to you first? Because
it's the funniest thing, because I've been going through this at this very moment, and actually this morning I fired our biggest client. So
wow.
it couldn't be more timely. So yeah, we had a challenging
Not prepared at all, by the way.
Exactly the same situation. So a client that signed up to our services, and very early on it was clear that they hadn't paid any attention to the service that they'd actually signed up for, despite numerous calls, very clear quotes and service agreements, and couldn't have been clearer. Even like simple infographics explaining how we work and like every angle, but they never really understood, and we had communication challenges constantly. And it was a challenge to serve them, and most importantly to me, it was a challenge for us to be our best and to deliver the service that we're known for and that we pride ourselves on, because the communication issues that we were having were such a hindrance to actually working with them. And the team, we did a exercise earlier this week, a perfect client exercise, where we spent an hour brainstorming what made our perfect clients from every angle. I wanted to see what creative thought versus what copywriting thought versus what account management thought. And we went through that and specifically went through our clients and talked about who are the ones that we enjoy working with the most and who are the ones we enjoy not working with. Who we don't enjoy working with. And this client was across the board don't enjoy working with, to the point that one of my team members said that she was actually having nightmares where he was shouting at her in her kitchen for not getting copywriting correct and things like that.
That's
so
awful.
So when we had this challenge with them, I just decided that was it. So it was from the perspective of, yes, they're the biggest client, but they're causing the amount of time that we were allocating to them versus the reward was not in alignment at all. And if we remove them from serving them, the amount of time that we'll free up, not just from time to serve other clients, but mental capacity of the team, of not being stressed about it and worrying about them and things like that. We just had to pull together then and find the next client and the replacement clients. And we weren't going to be able to do that if we didn't have the capacity, and we just kept on serving them. So we couldn't keep on serving them and find that replacement. So, you know, it's a bold decision, but you just have to do it. You have to work out how are you going to find the next client, work out that it is the best thing to do for your team, be confident that you have a good product or a good service, whatever business it is. And yeah, just pull the plug, because it is not, we don't start businesses to work with people that we don't like to work with.
Absolutely. I'd be curious to know whether or not, after going through that exercise, whether you now feel that you'll be better equipped to actually qualify your clients in the future, and if that's empowered the team as well.
Yeah, it has. So the reason we did this perfect client workshop was to do a few things. So we've changed our pre-qualified process now, just slight tweaks and things like that to make sure that it's aligned more with the people that we want to work with. We've then also changed some of our content as well, but specifically we're currently building a content fortress, which is a really great concept that Martin Huntbatch and Lindsay Cambridge have wrote a book recently called Content Fortress, and it's about creating content that is out there and published on your site that really is designed not just to attract the right people, but also, very importantly, repel the people that you don't want to work with. So it's content around, you know, why do we charge what we charge, things like that, how, you know, why you might not be the right client for us, and then write about the client, you know, the kind of clients that just don't gel well with the service or the product or whatever it may be. So we did it to build the fortress, which we're going to build into our prospecting service now. Our prospecting and the sales process of just sharing some of these articles and some of these pieces that are published on our site about who we like to work with and who works well with us and who doesn't. So it's kind of aligned all the way through, from the content, from prospecting, from the sales process. So I've tweaked the questions that we go through during the sales process, because it's just as much about us deciding if we want to work with them as it is about them deciding whether they're going to say yes as well. So
it's kind of like the red velvet rope policy that I think Michael Port talks about in Book Yourself Solid. It's having that up and very clear who you'll let into the nightclub and who you won't. So that's totally serendipitous that it literally had happened this week. So really interesting to get the perspective of someone that's literally just done it. So Chris, I've got to come on to you last, because I know you've got a bit more of an aggressive stance on this sort of thing. So Jake, how would you sort of anything you would add?
I mean, that's perfect. First of all, congratulations for recognizing that and making that decision. That's incredible. I love hearing stuff like that. I'm actually excited to hear Chris's aggressive stance on this. Look, so sometimes I need to be more aggressive with it, but I think everything that we've kind of worked on, especially in the past year, is about alignment, and not only alignment with what we want to do and who we want to serve, but alignment with like who's actually going to benefit the most from what we do, and making sure, like you said, working on content, that alignment starts way up the chain. Just getting people in and putting them through kind of a, an application kind of, gate to see if they're right for you. I view that kind of as stage 3 of that alignment process, right? It needs to happen so far up the chain that, it's kind of a natural progression. So a lot of what we're doing, especially with one of our new lead of sales that we are bringing into the fold, is that we really are attracted to him because that's his specialty, is really kind of making sure that the messaging, everything is completely on point, way up the chain. So anyone that he or the team or whatever gets on the phone with or starts to qualify, it's kind of a foregone conclusion. And now you're talking about minute things. And I've seen people even go as far as saying like, hey, listen, I show up, maybe 5 minutes late to meetings. Is that going to be a problem? And seeing how people react. And and you shouldn't do that. I'm a stickler on time, but they recognize that happens with them. And they recognize that actually becomes a problem with some of their clients, and it causes bitter things. And they just say, listen, that's a sticking point for us. We recognize this is a sticking point for us. Is that going to be an issue? If that's going to be an issue, then I don't know. Something that minute can be a little bit crazy, but it's really about alignment. And I agree. I think that holding on to a client purely for the money, again, we all know about a scarcity and abundance and velvet rope, but it's detrimental to the team. It's detrimental to the growth. It will not serve you correctly, like you said, capacity, mental bandwidth. We're big on effective hourly rate. We don't do anything by hourly rate on the outside, but we track hourly rate. Like how much is this process profiting for the business. And it's not only effective hourly rate from a financial standpoint, but it's also from an emotional and a just, emotional state standpoint. Is it draining? And if it's highly profitable, but it's draining, then that's off. It's not an equilibrium there. So we, stuff like that. We try to get out of quickly, and we try not to get into it. That's the biggest thing. And then we find ourselves.
You can just look at the you can look at the balance sheets and all the rest of it, and money coming in, money coming out, and all the rest of it. But ultimately, you're not going to see the actual impact of that situation on the balance sheet right now.
Right.
But you might start seeing it down the road where productivity drops, and you can start seeing it on that balance sheet. But it's kind of knowing that you need to take the action now to stop seeing the impact on that bottom line. Because,
And we definitely have different levels too. I mean, if someone's actually being rude and people do not enjoy working with them because of personality stuff, then that's immediate red flag. We have a problem. This is unacceptable. Right now, issues with kind of timing and structure and how so and so likes to work and they like this and all the little bits and pieces, those can be massaged. Personality is very hard to actually change. So if we recognize a personality comes to the table that just doesn't jive, then that's that's an easy decision for us.
It's human. Yeah, that's human relationships. And it doesn't matter necessarily how well you work at the beginning, setting all the expectations, making everything very clear. I think in Amy's example there, sometimes it just doesn't click. It just doesn't work. And that's okay.
Yeah.
We don't get along with everyone.
Yeah.
But it's the way you do it, I guess. It's how you sort of view, because at the end of the day, you don't want to literally, leave with a real sour taste. You want to do it in as I guess the best way possible. Sometimes it won't work. Sometimes it doesn't happen. But there's a way of doing it.
And to that point, I mean, we're not big on burning bridges. Sometimes you just got to go and say, hey, this isn't working out. But it's also things saying listen, I think you might be better suited for this, or it's somehow we try to, we don't like kind of sour grapes kind of situation. That doesn't help anyone either. But I mean, and typically they kind of feel the same thing on the other side of the table. They're not happy. There's a reason why this isn't working. It's not one-sided. And so you bring that conversation to the table and you do it in a mature way that's talking about the benefit of both businesses, then you can pretty much kind of agree to divorce and go your separate ways. So
absolutely. Very good points there. And Chris, I know I kind of I've sort of set you up there in terms of, and what I don't mean it's aggressive and all the rest of it, but we did actually have a bit of a conversation around this topic a little while ago, and you have an opinion on it. So let's hear it.
Send the boys around. Straight up. Send the boys around. Smash the place up. No, I'm joking, obviously. No, I think, again, Amy, completely the right choice. Chasing money is the biggest surefire way to potentially go bankrupt, which sounds counterintuitive, but you'll be miserable. Your team are going to be miserable. Their creativity is going to go down. The work for other clients that they do enjoy working will suffer. So otherwise, your other clients won't particularly enjoy it. Basically, it comes down from my point of view as if you've got a toxic relationship, you try and address it. Jacob, you said it as well, right? It's not about sending them a shitty email at 3 a.m. sort of saying bye. The idea is to try and address it. You try and find ways to be constructive about it. Look, you've obviously misunderstood or we've misunderstood. Let's see if we can refine this and realign it. But if you can't, and if somebody is genuinely making everyone's life miserable, it's time to get out, just like any other toxic relationship. And internally, we call them bad profits, and we don't want any bad profits. Like, I didn't start a business to be miserable working for people I don't like. I could have stayed in a job for that. I had it nailed. So my idea really is actually, how do we keep working with people that we do love? So the last one for us was back in October. We got a message from a client basically saying, your digital marketing strategy, this isn't what we expected. And we were like that. Oh, really? What's happened? They were like that. We were looking for a high level strategic overview of our entire business. I was like, that, why would you think I'd give you that? I don't understand. So we returned half of their money, said, goodbye, have a nice day, and we don't ever want to speak to you again. It's not in a nasty way. It's a case of there's something very, very wrong. James O'Donnell, who's our commercial director, and myself are pretty open in terms of social media. We share stuff, we mess things up, we're constantly experimenting on social media. We're doing all sorts of stuff all the time. We don't care. Like, it's just constantly about trying things and doing things differently. We also don't take ourselves very seriously. So part of our kind of, are you sure you want to work with us, is exactly what you guys have both spoken about, Amy and Jacob. It's, check our social media profiles, go through and make sure you understand who we are. We're the guys who this year have started playing FIFA on a Friday on a live stream and talking about marketing. Why? Because, well, we wanted to have a game of FIFA on a Friday. It seemed like a good thing to do. And at the same time, we could do a live video and chat about marketing. We don't do things like everybody
else. Call it work, yeah.
And we call it work, exactly. This is the most amazing thing. So thank you very much. Xbox Game Pass. Xbox Game Pass go through the company. No, it's not because of that, but it's literally a case of we just want to do things differently. We want to have fun. We want to take people out of their comfort zones. And again, we'll say to people, really go in, have a dig deep through our social media. Make sure you like working with us, because if you watch some of that content and go, oh my God, these guys are absolute idiots, like I wouldn't ever want to work with them, fantastic. I'd much rather find out now than 3 months into a terrible relationship, which ultimately ends nobody winning. They're not going to get good results because they're not listening to you. They don't value what you're doing. They don't implement what you're talking about. And vice versa. They're never going to talk well about you because they're going to say you're rubbish when, well, you're not rubbish. And, you've been doing this for a while and other people are getting great results. It's clearly an issue with the relationship rather than anything else. So I would always say, bin it as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And I think that is a universal, you should just, cut the cord, move on, but do it in the right way that, makes, respects that, you're just not the right fit. It doesn't mean you're necessarily bad people. It just means this isn't right for us right now, not right for you right now. Let's move off and, you'll find something better. We'll find something better. It's kind of like we've, almost all of us have got an ex. So it's kind of like, if you go stalk them on social media and all that, you'll probably find that they found someone better than you. So it's the same, it's the same thing with your clients, right? It's, it's just, again, it's human relationships, it's connection. It's not always going to gel. So yeah, I hope that's helped. And you're no longer thinking. And I guess there's an added thing in there around a complication when you've got a business partner that doesn't necessarily want to do it, even though they'll see it's probably the right thing to do. So that can be a bit of a challenge, but I want to sort of come on to the next challenge in terms of, this one's a bit more around, I guess, the tactical side of things in terms of, right, we are looking to actually do some marketing, generate some business, all that kind of thing. But obviously there's been the current situation. So this person says, our budgets have been hit quite hard over the last few months for fairly obvious reasons why. I don't want to stop marketing as I know it will hurt us down the line, but we need to be careful with what we spend it on. What would you suggest? And I guess what I'm hearing is, first of all, this is a good question because they recognize that they can't stop marketing. Otherwise, their pipeline 90 days, 180 days from now will really start to show it. And that's the thing with marketing. It's not a one-off event. It's a process that never stops. So that's a good thing. First of all, that person has recognized it. But I guess they're now thinking, where do they get the maximum value considering maybe a smaller budget? And obviously we don't have the context of what they've been doing and all that kind of thing. But I guess more of the frame for the question is, if you had a reduced spend, where would you focus your efforts? And not just, I guess, money-wise, but time as well. So Jake, where would you sort of think, because you're the equity guy, you're the hidden equity guy, and maybe this won't even be a marketing answer because there's so much that you could look at.
Yeah. Again, without content, I mean, this is one of those things where deeper questions are kind of need to be. Origin point is important. I'm not sure what kind of business it is. I think it's kind of really depends on what really drives. I mean, what drives the business? Is it if their sales process is dialed in and they have capacity in order to onboard clients and bringing in, if they got 10 more clients tomorrow, if that wouldn't break the business, then their marketing efforts, I say, well, okay, well, now we need to think about front end pipeline. especially if you're digging, let's dig the well before we need it. Absolutely. If they're not spending money on front end pipeline, and that's not how they're driving your business, and they rely mostly on authentic, organic based kind of, relationship building, then I say, go strong on copy, go strong on copy and content. It's hard to say without knowing the business, but I think you have to really kind of recognize, like, break down the system and see where the bottlenecks are, and really kind of look at, if we brought in 10 clients tomorrow, would we be able to handle it? And if the answer is no, then you have systems problems. Well, I would actually be better at fulfillment, be better at kind of that back end process to being more profitable on the back end, because that's going to require you to not have to spend more money on the front end. Like, be more profitable with what you have, with the flow that you have, and you don't have to create more flow until you get that fixed, and then you can add more to it. And I think that's kind of the problem I see with a lot of people coming in saying, like, well, I need to spend more money. It's like, well, putting more money into a machine that's not working correctly is just going to hurt it even further, So, but as far as like marketing goes, yeah, I mean, if you have the back end, you have the fulfillment process, then I would look at, where are your people really coming from? Where are your best clients coming from? Where do you show up best? If you're great storytellers and people love, interacting with you and seeing you playing FIFA on the, Friday and stuff like that, then it's content, go content heavy. And if it's B2B and people need to see kind of white papers and absolute maximum results, then you need to focus on, digging yourself into that industry. I mean, it's kind of a tough question without knowing exactly what it is and the ins and outs. But I think it's something that should not be done, like, just be, a flippant kind of like, oh, we're just going to dump money here, especially if you're worried about cuts and worried about, we have a finite amount of budget. Where do we spend it best? Well, I mean, you got to break it apart and see where the issues are. And then, I would kind of just, look at, like, where was the best situations? What came from there? I mean, again, the old adage of, throwing spaghetti at the wall. We see this a lot with something when people get into a corner like this. You throw spaghetti at the wall, you find a noodle that sticks, and you go, okay, well, that was cool. Then you go grab a whole handful of different noodles and you throw it against the wall. It's like, no, it's like, that thing worked, do that again and again and again until you guys are right, until you guys figure it out, until you guys master it. Then you can start thinking about other things. But it's fastest path to cash. And that typically comes by looking at what was your fastest path to cash previously. So,
yeah, and completely agree. It's difficult without context. But I guess one of the reasons why I think having you guys answer this is, it's almost like what you touched on before. It's really not necessarily about giving somebody the answer. It's asking them questions to go and think about themselves, to help them answer themselves. Because maybe they are only thinking, right, well, we need to do the front end stuff. But actually, they would be better considered not going and doing the things that they might have been doing on the front end, but actually now looking at possibly the most valuable asset that any business has, and that's their existing clients.
Yep.
And looking at, right, what more needs do my clients need? Can I service them in a different way? Can I create something that will serve them in a different way? Yeah. Can I go to my clients and see if there are referrals that are in my clients, all that kind of thing? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be all on that sexy front end stuff.
Yeah,
it
goes back to our sawdust conversation the first time we talked about. It's kind of like you have those assets in there, and investing in expansion growth is, the dollar goes a lot further than net new investment. So, and net new being new people coming in, new prospects, new stuff like that. Expansion is basically saying, hey, listen, we have something that works. These people, how can we grow this business and grow our piece of the pie versus going off and trying to steal someone else's? That's an expensive move. So if you're budgeted, then sometimes growing your own pie is the fastest way to actually hit that growth trajectory that you really, really kind of desire.
And Amy, any sort of thoughts to add to what Jake said there?
I agree with everything. I think when I first saw this question, my instinctive response was, well, what's worked in the past? Like, what have you done that worked in the past? understand that, look at the data, and go, more in on what works. If you've got a limited budget, marketing is always trial and error. It's always working out and putting the time in until you work out what happens and what will be best for you. So maybe it's not the time for trial and error in the budget. It's time to just look at what has worked in the past. It worked, and then invest in more of that, and don't start doing experimental marketing. And we've never ever run Facebook ads, and we've got a limited budget. Let's try Facebook ads. Probably wouldn't be the best thing to do, because you're going to burn your budget doing that. But other things have worked. And also, I guess the other thing I thought, we've already said, you need more context. But if they're cash poor and time rich, then they have lots of capacity because they've lost some clients, things like that. Then content, you can lots of content of different formats and different ways that you can create content, and going in and looking at the things that you can do that require more time of your team and you as well, like reaching out to current clients and having conversations of who they could refer you on to, looking at people who've inquired in the past, asking if they'd like to jump on a call, see if you could help them, things that are more heavy dependent on time. So if you look at, you may not have much cash, but you do have time. So how can you deploy the time effectively to those marketing activities? But yeah, and I agree with everything said before, but just, it's not probably the time to burn that budget on experiments if you know what works.
Absolutely. It's yeah, it is the worst time to go and try new things, because if you've got that limited amount, then that'll burn really quickly, especially if you don't know what you're doing, you're just trying it yourself, or B, you even when you go and find help for that kind of thing, there is that learning phase anyway. And that's, I think, what a lot of people, and people here and on this call and on the panel that work with clients from an agency perspective will tell you all about that. Sometimes clients don't understand that there is that experimentation phase required between agency and client, and it has to actually be factored into some of the things. But the magic bullet is the thing that people want, and therefore that's what they're hoping to pay for. And sometimes you hit it out of the park straight away, but really, it's about learning the process between the two. So, I mean, Chris, would you sort of have anything to add? Obviously, without the additional context, but has anything come to mind?
No, I think Jacob and Amy have covered pretty much everything, the bulk of it. What I would say for anyone in this situation, remember there's entire industries that cannot use advertising platforms like Facebook or Google Ads or anything else. Guess what? They're still doing okay. So, if you've got if you're time rich, cash poor right now, it's not about what you can create that's fancy. It's about what you can start putting time into and actually doing differently. And I think, everything that we talked about, content and everything else, is great, but outreach, it's something that we don't really talk about a lot. And we're constantly kind of in this make-believe land where everything we put out should just automatically bring this influx of leads to us. We shouldn't have to do anything. And actually, all the social platforms require you to be more social. So if you're more social, you will get 100 times more engagement, and you will be involved and in front of 100 times more people. So get out there, connect with your ideal customers, create content for them, get involved in their conversations. You don't have to start every conversation. You can be part of a bigger conversation. And that's where people really miss out on the quick wins, as they're looking for some silver magic bullet that just makes everything happen for them automatically.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And unfortunately, there is a lot of talk out there that it's a magic button. You just invest this in Facebook, and £1 in becomes $1 million on the other side, all that kind of thing. And if that's what you're thinking about, and that was what the question was around, I don't think it was, but you're gonna get found out basically. But I think the outreach side of things, it's all about connection, having conversations. And I guess if another way of looking at this problem, if it is just purely we need some front end side of things and all the rest of it, maybe it's like, I guess, the theme that I'm hoping this podcast becomes, but it's also really an example of, I think, the ultimate, one of the leverage tools that we all have, but we don't always take advantage of, is others. Collaborate. A rising tide lifts all ships. So finding other businesses and adding value to them and their audience and their clients, and doing it vice versa. That will expose you to completely new audiences. That will allow people to get to know you on a very different level, and you're not spending upfront. Like, partnerships are one of the best ways of doing it. built an entire business from 0 to 7 figures, an events big business based purely, or pretty much purely on that. If you've got nothing, go and offer somebody else value in a different way. Like I think that is one thing that you can do. It's an incredible leverage tool, and that is one of the things. It's like you forget the things that worked. Actually, reciprocal partnerships can be one of the most beneficial. Joint ventures, I know, Jake, you're a massive fan of them, that kind of thing, but we don't have time to go into those because I am very aware that we are approaching the top of the hour. So I just want to say thank you all ever so much for your input, for joining me. It's been awesome. I'm 2 hours into this, and I'm going to see if I can keep my energy up for the last hour, because this is intense, but I like it. So guys, I am going to just bring it back up your where to find you. Chris is socialinc.co, Amy is content10x.com, and Jake is destinedtoscale.com. Parting words, is there anything else that you'd like to let people know about, where they can connect with you if they haven't already? Let's ladies first, with Amy at the end.
No, content10x.com is definitely the best place. I'm on LinkedIn as well. You'll find me there. And I try to be funny on other social media platforms like Instagram and places like that. So you'll find me there too. All that Content10x, very easy to find.
Well, the big question is, will we see you playing FIFA against Chris in a future time?
I'll try.
Chris?
Well, we want to have a game of FIFA with anybody who's interested, so please let us know. That's become our new thing. But if not, you can find us at socialinc.co, and again, chrisbruno.co if you'd like to find out more about myself or what we've been doing as a business.
Awesome. And Jake?
So destinedtoscale.com, you can check us out there. Typically, Facebook is the fastest way to get a hold of me, message me. I also started doing a lot of regular rooms on Clubhouse. I do that pretty much daily. And it's been fantastic. That's actually been a big shift for us. It's amazing. So if you want to check that out, let me know if you need an invite. I have lots of them. But
yes, you very kindly provided me with one. So thank you very much
absolutely.
For that.
But other than that, so we have lots of virtual events planned for this year. So that's a big push for us this year. Lots of virtual events. So if you ever want to come and join us and talk about scaling your business, and they're affordable. But that's our interaction thing. So yeah, let me know.
And I think you got one tomorrow, haven't you? Is it tomorrow?
I have a 2-day starting Friday and Saturday all day. Yeah, that's the first one of the year. It's a big one. Well, so.
Even more gratitude for you coming here, because I know planning these sort of things is it takes a lot more time than you realize. So thank you guys ever so much for being here. It's been wonderful to connect with you again. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed the format. It's a little different. So playing with it, getting used to it. So thank you ever so much for being part of it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invite.
Great talking to you. Nice meeting you guys.
Cheers. Right, so panel 2 done. We have a couple of the guys in the room waiting for the next session. So I really do hope that listening to this, watching this, you're starting to see where I'm trying to take this, with really just getting into the mind of people that have been doing or running businesses for a while, have got the scars, got the battle scars, they've got the wins, and really it's about, I think as Jake touched on there, it's kind of what I'm trying to do is help people ask themselves and each other better questions, because that will allow everybody to really, that rising tide lifts all ship, the collaborative approach, because, that again, the old saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. I think it's so true. And I think if we really think about how I have this belief and this view that rather than trying to change the world, if you just try and change or help the person next to you and encourage them to do the same, it's that collaborative and that ripple effect that will actually do the good that everybody wants to be able to do. Most of us want to do. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. If we can have one person submit a challenge or a dilemma that they're going through, and the guests and I can sort of bounce ideas of how we would go ahead or go and solve that challenge or that kind of thing, and just help one other person. Maybe it will help others out there. and it will make a positive impact and a positive difference. So that's where I'm going with this show. That's why I was so excited to bring on the 6 that have been on, but as excited to bring on the next 3 that are sitting here patiently waiting in the green room. So what I am going to do is bring them on one by one. We'll first welcome Tobin, Ethan, and Steve Gordon. So first of all, check our sounds are on and we are unmuted. And yeah, how are we doing, guys? Great to see you.
Awesome. Happy to be here.
Same thing. Excited to be here. And Adam, you've done a phenomenal job. I've been watching this morning. What amazing guests that you brought to the show. I really love what you're doing.
Well, I think one of the things that we'll all touch on, and I know this is very dear with what Steve does specifically. I know what you guys are doing at Book of Experts, and Ethan, you're massively on about rehumanizing business, right? So I guess, to be honest with you, the idea, I don't know where it originated. I think I mentioned to you, Tobin, I feel like that you're doing something similar with Book of Experts, and you're having some, a lot of these live sessions and panels, and I've been on a few of them and they're fantastic. I feel like I can't narrow it down and this idea to one place, one idea. I've been exposed now over 100 interviews, over 100 people coming on, to so many brilliant minds, so many different ways of thinking, so many stories, so many life journeys, and I think they've all sort of sunk in subconsciously in a way, and I just got to this point and I sort of thought, I want to do this differently, and this is where we are. So thank you ever so much for coming back. It's great to see you guys, and what I want to just quickly do is go around and remind people where we first met and what we spoke about, and then I'll just ask you kind of what's been going on since, and what are the opportunities that you're working on now. So I think it was episode 32 was when Steve and I were first talking, and we spoke how to pre-sell your ideal clients so they show up ready to hire you. Episode 43 was Ethan, and we were talking about how to use video to rehumanize your business and land more clients. And 52 was Tobin, the most direct route to revenue and cash flow in your business. So why don't we start in the order that we were introduced? And Steve, what's been going on in your world? How have you been, and what are you working on?
I've been great. I mean, it's been a challenging 12 months, I think, for everybody, but I'm more optimistic about the future than I've ever been. And we're having a lot of fun. We've over the last year, we've helped a little over a dozen entrepreneurs launch their first book. We've launched new podcasts for folks, and we're just really enjoying helping professionals grow their businesses with those two tools: a really great book and a podcast to connect with people like you're doing here.
Yeah, it's and I did see I mentioned to you as well the offer that you've put out there with the book, and it's a no-brainer if you're wanting to actually use the book in the way that you talk about, and the referral element that goes ahead with it, and especially high value, high trust services. I know you're a big believer in the whole, you don't need the funnel, you don't need hundreds and thousands of leads coming in your funnel. It's about the connection, the relationships, and adding and leading with value. And you doing that with a book and the way that you guys do it. And let's be honest, Steve, you've written 5, so you know what you're doing. It's incredibly valuable, and I think that we'll make sure that we link up anything to that and what you're doing there, because it's fantastic. And the offer was inspired by another previous guest as well, Joel, wasn't it? It's very well done, very well done. So, Tobin, Ethan. Sorry, I got my order all wrong. So, Ethan, what have you been up to?
Oh, it's all good. It's good to see you again, Steve. Good to spend time with you again, Adam, and nice to meet you, Tobin. We connected, I think, on LinkedIn. Everything's great. As you can imagine, for folks who heard my conversation with you on the podcast or who are familiar with what we do, you can imagine that this was not we did not suffer through the pandemic experience the same way a lot of other businesses did, because we help you be as close to in person as possible in an asynchronous way, right? So we're all live here in StreamYard. We all had to be here at the same time, across time zones, et cetera, et cetera. So we make it easy to, use video to get face-to-face with people outside of time. So I can record a message and send it to anyone and they can experience me in person at any time. So business has been good for us. Obviously had a boost right after the onset of the pandemic. Some of those bigger deals that were in the pipeline that are like kind of slow, like where you still need to get to 3 or 4 more decision makers, like immediately the red tape just disappeared. It is fast track to getting going. And so it's been fun to be along that ride. I think the book that I co-authored with my friend Steve was something that brought us together initially, Adam. And so I ended up writing another pretty heavyweight piece mid-year that we just released ourselves, designed and released ourselves. And I'm working on a second kind of more formal book project, moving beyond video in particular to why we use video, why it helps, why it is more human, just to kind of elevate the conversation a little bit. I feel like a lot of folks who are adopting video and a lot of people who are selling video are positioning it in a way that I think debases it in some way. I think it is very, very pro-human, and a lot of people are using this kind of like gimmick, quick attention steal kind of approach. And so we're just looking to elevate the conversation. So I'm deep in that, and it's really, really fun.
Yeah, I listened to the show that you did with Steve on the Unstoppable CEO, and that's another great episode. And I mean, it's so true. It's interesting because, as you say, you've probably not been impacted in the same way that many other businesses out there, because actually your business is set up almost to serve people in this climate.
Mm-hmm. And especially the type of people that you attract because of your own philosophy. I mean, the reason we got along so nicely immediately was just kind of shared philosophy. So if you are long-term oriented, value oriented, relationship oriented, then you can apply the tool and the philosophy in a way that's going to be very well aligned with the outcome that is beneficial for all stakeholders, not just you and your own top line.
And I think the ultimate testimonial is that I certainly used BombBomb in the lead up and preparation and preparing for this event. And I possibly it's fantastic in terms of, it means I don't have to literally write everything out. It does have, from my personality and the ADHD, I can go off on tangents and the videos can be a little longer than I anticipated and it can be a little bit overkill, but it's a fantastic tool. I love doing them. I find that it allows me to actually, talk to people. And I did all the invites via the, an individual video, for example. And it's fantastic. I hope that everybody found them at least, I remember who he is, that kind of thing. But it's it's a fantastic tool. I mean, I use it for so much. So Tobin, I know you've been busy.
We have had a busy year. I first want to say, Ethan, I love this book that you talked about. So please add me to your alert list, your notifications. I want to know when more information comes out about that. I've been getting some of those bombs, and I love what both of you are doing. Actually, Steve, we haven't talked in person, but I've been following you and reading your material and content for a while. So I'm super thrilled just to be here with all three of you. For us, I think we were all pretty happy to turn the calendar just because it was such a strange year in 2020. But it was a good year for us. It will be a memorable one for a number of reasons. But for us, we launched Book of Experts. It was a COVID creation project for us. So we've been building, my partners and I have been building sales teams for a while, usually working with influencers who basically want to multiply their profits from the launches they're doing. Bring in a sales team that can actually pick up the phone, talk to people, and get more sales. People don't realize that 60% of the sales happen after the launch. And as we were doing that, we wanted to create something that would support our environment, our ecosystem of other entrepreneurs. So we call it Book of Experts because it's speakers, authors, coaches, consultants, agency owners. We're really just trying to showcase and spotlight them. We've been really busy with doing virtual events around that. We do expert panels similar to this, and Adam's been on with us. So we're just excited about where things are going. Our business is also growing because of we have virtual teams. We're just in the right space. But I also recognize that's not true for a lot of people. Think their worlds have been turned upside down. So we think we can bring some value to the table and help people for free. And if it's a fit, we'd love to talk with them about doing more as well, like all of us. But it doesn't. There's always going to be value there at the free level.
Mm. Yeah, and what I'm keen to get into, obviously the challenges and everything. But I think what's great amongst you three guys in particular, and it is the shared philosophy that comes through your work. It's all there. It's all about the collaborative element. It's all about relationship. It's all about really, helping by leading with value and not being that pitchy person, the person that is just leading with what's in it for me. It's more, how can I help you? And I think that's the philosophy that comes through each three of you particularly. So I'm glad that we ended up with you guys on this panel, and I think we're going to have a great conversation. So what I've been doing is I slightly changed it. Obviously, we had the challenge questions laid out, and I think Alex made a good point, and obviously explained, is that I wanted to cover the same question or the same dilemma on each of the panels, because I actually think that this is something that underlines everything. And if you don't understand or get this fixed or dealt with, nothing else we're going to talk about is going to matter. So that dilemma is it's all around personal struggles. So the person's come in with this. I know, coming from the owner of the business, this sounds terrible, but my biggest challenge is myself. I know I've got people relying on me to encourage and lead them, and I know it's important for my staff in any situation, but especially right now. The thing is, I kind of just want to break, as honestly, I'm tired and I'm not motivated at the moment. How do you deal with the weight of it all when things get tough? So it's quite a, it's something we all go through. So really interested to hear if you've got stories, if you've got examples, or you've got ways that you would suggest of dealing with this to sort of help this person. And is there anyone that wants to jump in on this one first, or am I going to pick a winner?
I'll jump in. I was actually just having this conversation with a client right before this call, and it's not the first one that I've had over the last few months with folks. And honestly, to the person who sent this in, full transparency, I've felt a lot of that here lately too. I think part of that is just a symptom of the times, and part of it is just being the leader of a business. It's easy to wear yourself out because you take on a lot of weight, and I think right now for a lot of people, the priority is building in some space in the schedule, and creating some free time. And I think it's one thing to say that. This is one of the things I always like about your podcast, Adam, is you always force people to go a little bit deeper beyond just, hey, oh, that was a great thing that you said, but how do we actually do it? And, and so I'd love to hear from the other guys in terms of how to operationalize it. Just this week, I had to go through the calendar and just start marking days. And I was working about 4 or 5 weeks out before I could find a day that was free, and just like mark it big capital letters, don't schedule anything, because I've got to have some space, because I think we're all struggling with some of that. So to me, that'd be the first thing to do. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's a reality. And I say it's a reality whether or not the world's on a lockdown or not. And I mean, I'll be honest, I had this idea to do this. I was going to change the podcast and all the rest of it. I set the wheels in motion, and then we got put back into a lockdown, which means that we're homeschooling, which means that my time was cut in half. My wife and I both run businesses. She's a graphic designer. I do this. We have literally had our days cut, and we're running 2 different businesses on half days, and we're splitting not just homeschooling, but running around after a toddler who's also trying, all of that sort of stuff. So, God, there are times when I just sit there and I go, I just want to scream. Like, I want to get all of this done. I'm absolutely passionate about doing it. I also love my family, and I want to be there for them and do all the rest of it. It's literally like being pulled in 2 different directions. And there were times when I was sort of preparing for this and all the other things that are going on in the business. I just wanted to sleep. But I knew that I had to get it done. So I had to get up early. I had to stay up late. But I knew that there was a finite amount of time I could do it. So after this, I'm probably going to crash. Right? So it's okay. And I think that if you are the kind of person, you know, if you've sort of sent this in, maybe you just need to assess, is this something that it's a blip, or has this been going on longer? Because if it's a blip, give yourself a break in a way, like just do that. And it's something that you can get over a little bit quicker. But if it's something that's been going on for a lot longer, that could be a sign of something deeper, and you would be advised. And we are not psychotherapists or anything like that. We don't play them on TV, but I would suggest that that is the kind of thing that you really consider actually talking to. But we're talking from a practical sort of business side of things, and what you can do to maintain that motivation. So, you know, from a perspective of you and Bomb, Ethan, I mean, maybe using these videos is a way to, I don't know, put a bit more fun back into things, rehumanize. There's got to be stuff in there.
It's funny. I hear that a lot, like this, especially for people that have been in their career 20, 30 years where, and less, but really people that have been around for a while and they remember how business used to be done before it was all faceless. And they say, this makes what I do fun again. The other thing I would say specific to video, and then I'll go more broad and pick up on where you and Steve were, is that gratitude is just a very, very healthy habit. I know a lot of people journal around it and that kind of a thing, but carving out 5 minutes to start your day to say thank you to 2 or maybe 3 people, or good job, congratulations, I was thinking about you. Some of this, it grounds us, it puts us in a healthier mental state. And there's something about the act, and I don't want to sound too woo-woo here, but there's something about the act of breathing these words into life instead of pecking them into a keyboard or even writing them down on paper. There's something about living the words out and expressing them with your whole self that's very, very transformative in kind of an immediate micro sense, where it can turn things around. And then when you get the reply and response that says, this totally made my day, or best email ever, these kinds of things that no one says, by the way, about your faceless emails, that it helps both people. But I would, I really want to empathize with this idea in this situation. I think when I feel some of these things, and generally I'll say down, right? Not necessarily lack of motivation. I'm a highly motivated person, and I would not characterize my lowest points as a lack of motivation. I think it's more overwhelm. And so in those moments, I obviously restack and reprioritize. I do need to carve out time, as Steve suggested, to do it. I won't try to block necessarily a whole day, but if I can find a half day or 2-hour window or something like that, when I'm at my freshest, by the way, I'm not at my freshest at 10 o'clock at night. So I'm not the stay up late guy. If anything, I'm going to get up an hour early and get up at 4 instead of 5 and make it happen then. But carve out a little bit of time, restack, reprioritize, focus on what you can control versus what you can't control, and then focus on what I call the next right step or the next right thing, because that's all we can do. And my big caution here is that, just like you need to put your oxygen mask on before you secure it for others, you have to take care of yourself first. And then the direct caution here, that's not a selfish thing. That's actually a useful, practical thing so that you can give to other people. But the other caution I would make, and the reason that a gratitude video is so effective for you and the recipient, is that our emotions are so highly contagious. And so, as you just said, Adam, if you catch yourself in this rut for some period of time, you have to take a more significant step than whatever smaller steps you were taking to try to, work your way out of it, because it affects everyone. And I want to be aggressive toward people that are kind of like caught in this trap or caught in this loop, but you have to do something more significant than what you were doing before if it persists, because it affects you, it affects your family, it affects your team members, it affects your clients, anyone that you're dealing with. It's so contagious. And the last thing, and then I'll give it to Tobin, is that we can't fake it. Right. It's one thing. And we have to, like in these short periods, you called it a blip. Like if we're in one of these blips and you have a call scheduled and you have to have the call, you show up and you do your best, but you can't fake it for a long time. That lack of integrity. And I don't mean that as a character flaw. I just mean this lack of consistency in word and deed and thought and expression is especially grinding and taxing, and you're only hurting yourself and the people you care about most. And so that's what I would say to that.
Yeah, so many brilliant points, and you had me laughing a little bit in the middle. Not, it's a serious subject, but funny enough, the last episode of the Client Catching podcast, I had to say this to Stacey, who was on. She was the second person that got me singing a Frozen song in my head. You're now the third. The next right thing, if you've got small kids and you watch Frozen 2, and I mean, we all know that Disney is a fantastic. It's the best marketing machine in the world. Let's be honest. They get catchy things in your head, but they have positive, reaffirming messages, right? Let's just do the next right thing. And sometimes when you're putting yourself under all of this pressure, that next right thing is the only thing you can do. And I'm not going to break into song, and I'm not going to do an Olaf impression, but Tobin, now I've completely lowered the bar for you.
Well, I actually appreciate that, because coming in on the heels of the answers that you've got in this panel, but even what's been said earlier today, you're getting magic from folks, and I just want to point out to people that this would be the kind of advice you're getting from all the experts today have been. It's what you'd have in paid consultations or paid engagements with clients. So it's really good stuff. And Ethan, I want to thank you for underlining that point of, we can't really be there to take care of the people that we care about most, whether it's family or clients, if we don't take care of ourselves. And I think that's a really important. I struggle with that. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes deferring, I'm just going to bull my way through this. And that's the point I want to bring. I'm going to give everyone here, all of us on the panel, and anyone who's joining us on the replay as well, I'm going to give you permission right now to maybe cut a few things out of your schedule, or a few things that don't matter so much. So I'm thinking about, I have a lot of friends who are doing the Clubhouse thing right now. Like, it's the rage. Everyone's talking about it. I'm just not even trying to go there, because I already know that I'm in that upper range of my bandwidth. And if I add one more thing, especially something that is so engaging for folks, I don't doubt the value there. I just can't tackle that thing. And maybe each of us have to look at, can we prioritize and go down to maybe just a couple of the social media channels? Don't try to be everywhere, but just pick the few that really matter. So Ethan's, talking about video and email, the delivery of the videos that way. Steve has been talking about the podcasts and the books. Like, can we focus in on just a couple things that will really move the needle? The other question that I love, I've been ruminating on this myself. I shared it with our team, and I hope you guys will get value out of this as well. A lot of people ask the question, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? It's that aspirational question. It's that reaching out there and where can you go with things if you really knew, it was inevitable, it was going to happen. But I actually like the reverse side of that question, which is, what would you be doing if you knew that big thing that you're going after? For us, it's Book of Experts. But if you're going after it and you knew it was going to fail, but you do it anyways. And I think that question is important, because it gets at, where is the real impact? Where is the fun? What are those things that even if you don't reach that bigger version, there's value in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So I'd encourage people to think about it that way. Like, what would you do if you weren't going to get paid, or you only got paid on completion and success for your clients? Like, how would you adjust things? And maybe that's part of the guidance that we all need to hear to focus in on what matters most.
So much in there. Like, that's gold. I mean, it just thinking about things differently and stepping back, and just, I guess that's something that we all forget sometimes, that we're almost looking for somebody else to give us permission to do certain things when we've got things on our mind that we know we need to do. And maybe that's why you're feeling tired. Maybe that's why you're not feeling the motivation, because you need to do something that you don't really want to do, but the right thing to do is not what necessarily you want to do, or you don't want to do, or something like that. But it's just like, stop looking for permission and actually ask yourself the question, what would I do if I couldn't fail? Or go the opposite way. Where am I going to find my joy? Would I find my joy even if I knew that this was going to completely blow up in my face?
I think Chris gave us a great example of this. So they've taken Fridays, they're playing video games, they're playing FIFA, and they're talking about marketing. Now, I don't have a PlayStation and I don't have a FIFA to join them on this, but I love the idea because they've made it fun and playful, and they're doing something work related. And I think that can be a really energizing activity when we can reinvigorate ourselves with some of that. And then, just as a shout out to earlier, I think it was also Chris who said, if you don't take that time, we can't even do the strategic work that we want to on our business if we don't sort of recharge and sharpen our axe before that. We have to take care of that first to even be there.
100%.
But I think that's so critical, because if reading into this question, whoever asked it was really talking about leadership and team development and all of that. If we think about the importance of that work in the business, that's the most important strategic work you really have, because the team is who actually executes and gets the results for the business. And if you think about, in terms of the priority of what do we have to do, on a day-to-day basis to go and drive that impact, really getting the team prepared to do that is probably pretty close to the top of the list. And so, looking at it as that higher level thing and then getting yourself prepared to do that, I think is a good reframe. And Tobin, I'm so glad you said, maybe I'm going to just put Clubhouse aside. I have been blown up this week. I got on Clubhouse. I feel like I'm, in the in crowd because a buddy of mine turned me onto it. But I finally, like you, I had to decide, it's not going to make all of the difference in the world for me. The other things that I'm working on are more important. And I'm just going to set it aside for a while. And if it comes back, then okay, it'll come back and it'll be something I'll give attention to. But for right now, it's not getting it.
Yeah, it's so true. And, Jake was on the previous panel, was kind enough to get me an invite to Clubhouse. And my iPhone, I mean, I'm not a massive tech fan or anything, but my iPhone was too old for the app to go on. So I didn't get sucked into it. And I'm kind of glad in a way, because I can see the value in it and I can use it on the iPad. And it just means that my access to it is limited. It's one of those things that's just like, I could see so many opportunities, so many ideas, so many great applications of it. And I could have seen myself getting sucked into that rabbit hole. But in a way, having a crappy old iPhone that hasn't got the software updates coming on, it has saved me from myself. But it's one of those things. But there's so many great thoughts and suggestions there. Sometimes we just need to, I guess, bring ourselves back on path. And that comes from knowing where you're going. It comes from understanding the path that you are on. And sometimes people don't really think about this, but it also comes from understanding where you are now. Because the only way you're going to get to a destination is knowing where you're starting from. And that's when you get to choose all the, planes, trains, automobiles, and, actual strategies, tactics, all the rest of it. And if you're starting right now from the position of this person, of feeling low and feeling motivation, well, that's going to dictate how you actually get to the destination you've set yourself. You actually have to adjust sails. Like, you really do. And you actually have to ask yourself those questions. Is what I am doing now going to get me to that destination, or is it going to literally take me into the eye of a storm when I'm going to sink? It's one of those most important things. And it comes again back round to the value of other people, like getting someone to come in and look at things, whether it's from a business perspective, whether it's just from a personal perspective, whether it's from a, let's just talk and use the app that Chris mentioned. Like, we all need that. It's massively important. And, one of the comments is, love it. What if you would know what would you do if you know you're going to fail? It moves the frame to what's truly worth doing, where the process and effort still has the value, even if ultimately a failure. And it's interesting. Alistair is one of the guests that have been on already. So weirdly, he is going to be in the future on the, and we had an absolutely fantastic conversation, with this sort of format. So thank you, Alistair, for being here and, supporting the launch. But what I want to do is I want to sort of move on to the next challenge where, if I can just find it, it's interesting, like this whole thing, doing a podcast interview. Normally, I don't have all of these distractions. So doing the live with all these sort of things going along, it's quite a different experience. I know, Steve, you and I did a live version. It was through Zoom, and these distractions weren't here. So my ADHD brain is, going all over the place. It doesn't help that I've got two screens and I can see things flashing at me and doing all the rest of it. But it's fun. And I think that that's been a key thing across all of the conversation as well. Like the sense of play, the sense of enjoyment, actually looking forward to getting up in the morning and doing these things. I was so excited about this. I was staying up late. I was getting up early because this excited me, this opportunity. And I think that's part of it. You've got to just enjoy it and find some joy, even if you're struggling at this point. Like, what's the one thing that can make you smile today out of what you're going to do? So, right. So I'm going to shift gears and get to more of a tactical question that I know that there's certainly expertise here that can definitely answer this question. Because it's around LinkedIn. And I guess this can touch a little bit on the, is this a shiny object kind of thing or whatever? And maybe the question is, do you need to use LinkedIn, blah, 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 blah. But this one came in from somebody and they say, I see people talking about LinkedIn being a good place to generate clients. And if I could crack it, I reckon there's a huge potential for my business to grow. But I'm struggling with getting people onto a sales call after initially making connections. Even says easy if you're selling digital marketing services, not as simple if you're selling a 5-figure B2B service in an insular industry. So how would you respond to that? And I'm going to go with Tobin first, because I know that this is where you focus a lot of your time around the conversational outreach. Do you want to sort of comment on that?
Sure. So a couple thoughts. One specific for this person, the fact that you're not in the sales and marketing space and that you're in a very niche industry is probably to your advantage. You may not be seeing it that way right now, but it's very attractive for someone like me because it's the sales and marketing space can feel like a red ocean sometimes. There's a lot of people competing for attention there because it is sexy, it's needed, and there's just a lot of conversation around that. But specific to LinkedIn, I get a lot of these questions. We're not a LinkedIn only, approach in our conversational outreach. To me, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or email, it's all plumbing. What's more important is that human to human connection. But here are a couple things to know about LinkedIn that might be useful. One, even if it's not your primary channel, you have access to a wealth of information, like about each person that you're conversing with. So even if the conversation is going to happen in email or maybe on Facebook, you can use what you learn about them on LinkedIn to inform and have a better conversation there. Most people that are in the business space are going to have some presence. I only know of a few people that have opted out of LinkedIn completely. You might see more of that on Facebook. I hear more often people say, I'm not going into that ecosystem, and they have their reasons, and some of them pretty legitimate these days. LinkedIn, most people are going to at least maintain a business presence, and you can, again, read about the business, understand a little bit more how they're positioning for the kind of work that they want to do, even if the conversation doesn't happen there. The other thing that I heard in this question was kudos to you, because it sounds like you're connecting with people successfully. And that sometimes is a challenge. We see a lot of folks that either they're struggling to find the right people that they most need to talk to and work with on LinkedIn. So it's a where do I find my people question that we tackle first. And then it's how do we start the conversation? And that part of that one step in there is making a connection or a friend request. So I think if you're already doing that successfully, that's good. You're more than halfway towards the goal line of what you want to accomplish. I'm going to answer my answer specifically of what I think you described as a problem is how do we make a hand-raising invitation to go into that sales call? And that's really
always elegantly put then, Tobin. Always an elegant way of putting it.
This is the big problem on LinkedIn right now. A lot of people are coming in salesy, pitchy. One of my friends calls them pitchy Pete's. I like to refer to them as leg humpers, but it's their agenda. They're coming in hard and fast with their agenda of what they want to make happen. And it makes us feel like we're a number in their spreadsheet. They're hoping to generate, a certain number of sales. And this is a relationship game. People do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So it's not worth burning your reputation coming in that way. Because my first impression of people when they pitch me immediately, like I get a long message on LinkedIn and at the bottom there's a calendar link and I don't even know who this person is or why I should care. My first thought is they've made a bad first impression. I don't know if I'll ever do anything with this person. Sometimes I kind of point out that there might be a different way of doing this, but we genuinely, one of my partners calls it friend hunting. You're looking for people that you want to know anyways. And then as you get to know them, and we can talk more about that process, but as you get to know them, you can figure out if there might be business there. And if not, it could be making an introduction to somebody else that would be helpful for them. But it's really about grooming those relationships. There's a process that works, but it's not automation. And it's got to be personalized. It has to be organic. When we send messages to people, 100%, we want them to know that message was meant for them, for their eyes alone. It's not a copy and paste. And Ethan, this is right up your alley with the bomb videos, because you can't fake those. You can't copy and paste 100 messages to 100 people that way. They feel it in the video, where there is a lot of text involved on the connection requests and things like that. And we're doing the same thing. We want to enter their world in an uplifting way that's about them, recognizing the value of the work that they're doing, and not just coming in and trying to sell them on something.
I think that you touched on something right at the beginning, and it's kind of like, it's actually it's a benefit if you're in more of an insular B2B industry, or you're not fishing in the red ocean of digital marketing or things like that, because people have their preconceived ideas and all the rest of it. Because you're going after a more insular market, you actually have the ability to do what a lot of others don't necessarily have that ability to do, and that is do the unscalable and do it well. You mentioned, Ethan, with the videos. Like, there's no reason why you couldn't start a conversation. And if you wanted to hand off and make that hand raising offer, if you did it through a video, right? If somebody is literally going through the automated process and blah, 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 all that kind of thing, you can't do that. But you can put the human element into it. And that's why I want to come on to you, Ethan, because that's an idea of using the type of thing that you do. But I know you're very active on LinkedIn as well, with the content that you put out there, and you're engaged with people. Do you use the messaging side of things much? And what is your experience around this sort of thing?
Yeah, it's really interesting. When I saw this was going to be a conversation topic, I thought about it. Like, I'm not actively selling a service, but I will tell you that I have been bought many, many, many times just by being present and active in some of the ways that Tobin talked about, which is, I'm not pressing people to appear on their podcast, but I'm getting those invitations, right? Simply by being present. So I'll go very, very practical, and then kind of step out and really double down on the niche industry piece at the end. I think it's really important to make sure that you are very, very clear. And I don't want to be too assumptive here, but I think it's worth restating this explicitly anyway. Who is your best customer? Who is your ideal customer? What problem do you solve for her or him? And what motivates you to do this work? Or I would call that a general bucket of differentiation, but not in like kind of a nuts and bolts way, but like, what is your approach? What is your motivation? What is your philosophy behind the way that you help these particular people solve these particular problems or capitalize on these particular opportunities? And then when you're clear on that, look at your LinkedIn profile again. Is there a clean photo? Does your headline support the problem that you solve and the people you solve it for? Do you have some featured content? You have that featured content block. Record a video of yourself explaining very, very simply who you work for, the problem that you solve, and why that brings you to life, and how you maybe do that uniquely. Put that in the featured content section. Make sure that your about section is filled out and that it speaks to these things. Make it really, really, really easy for people to understand. I could be a customer of hers, or I could be a customer of his, or I could be a customer of theirs, right? Make that easy, because then when you go into LinkedIn in the spirit and philosophy that I know that we all share, which is help, contribute, participate, engage, come with curiosity, come to learn, come to add, etc., you're going to wind up with more profile views. And when they get there, it needs to be really easy for people to understand whether or not they should be in a conversation with you. And I think by doing that, you're inviting the sales call, as opposed to copy, paste, ram down, cram down, leg hump, which is just it's such a funny term. All that stuff. And so, and then the next thing I would say is, time block and be a little bit programmatic about your approach. Think about what are the frequently asked questions from people at various stages of their relationship with you, whether it's consideration or at the other end, people that have been with you for 5 years. What do they still wonder about? What do they want to do again? These kinds of things. Keep a notepad of ideas. What's a new situation you ran into, or what's a question you got from someone that you had never been asked before and you figured it out together with them? Turn that into whether you want to do audio, whether you want to do video, whether you want to do writing. Be a little bit programmatic and release content and make it engaging for people to talk about, ask questions, provoke a conversation. And then the other big piece is engaging on other people's stuff. So that is going to promote a lot more profile views. It's going to promote a lot more inbound connection requests. When you show that you're a thoughtful person who's showing up in the right spirit, you're naturally attractive to other people. And so there's that. And then the last thing I'll say on the niche audience, so many of these industries lack books. They lack podcasts. They lack YouTube channels. They lack, you could invite people if you don't want to do a podcast, which I highly recommend, by the way, to anyone listening. Like it's easier and less expensive to start than ever before. You can do it full blown and hire people and make it amazing, or you could do it super low budget and just get started. But in this way, you have a vehicle to invite your prospective buyers into a conversation. And it could just be a little Zoom recording and you release it once a week. It's a 10-minute conversation. You release it once a week or twice a week in 2 parts on LinkedIn. But it gives you a vehicle to reach out and invite people into conversation so that A, you understand who you think your best customer is in a much more intimate way. And then B, you're building these legitimate relationships through this kind of co-creation, co-promotion scenario. And it's just a really natural, human, engaging, legit way to build conversations and relationships with your ideal customers.
Very similar to the I guess what's happened over the last 100 episodes, and I almost feel a little bit guilty now coming to Steve now, because I think Ethan's probably stolen a lot of your thunder that you would have had around some of this idea, because this is right up your alley. Maybe not the outreach direct sort of messaging kind of thing, but this is right up your alley in terms of niche insular businesses, that kind of thing, B2B, the value of, we mentioned your book service, we mentioned the fact that you do your podcast prospecting method, all that kind of thing. I mean, would you add to any of that, or is Ethan just totally taking it from you?
Well, let's talk about LinkedIn specifically, because I've been on LinkedIn since very close to the beginning. Someday I'll be old enough and even grayer, and that'll actually, be a badge of honor, I guess. But I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn, because I get leg humpers every day flooding me with connection requests and with messages. And so there are days I just don't even want to go in there. And I got called out recently. A buddy of mine is really amazing LinkedIn expert and very, very good at it. And we were on a call, and I was screen sharing, happened to have LinkedIn open, had like 90, had the little 99 plus little, thing next to my notifications, because I said I had to take 2 weeks off because it was just too much. So I get that it can be a challenge, but I think the way to make all of these systems work is really to think about who do I need to create business friendships with. I started really thinking about this at the beginning of last year. Like I've been in business now for, 25, 28 years now. And every relationship has led, or every result I've ever had has come from a relationship. It wasn't necessarily because I did some amazing marketing. It was because somewhere along the line, I made friends with somebody. Sometimes I did it through marketing, but more often I did it one-on-one, and either they sent people to me because they understood what I did and they liked me, and because they liked me, they had that affinity and they wanted to help, or because I reached out and connected directly with a prospect, and it led to that kind of relationship. And so where people get tripped up, I think, on LinkedIn is they try and go for this volume. How am I going to invite 1,000 people to be my friend this week? And I think it's not about scale, it's about compounding. And so how can I invite 3 people today that would be really great? And then how can I do that again tomorrow? And if I do that every day, the compound effect of that is going to blow away everything else that I could do, because I'm going to be making real human connections. And that gives you then the time, because you're not trying to do scale, gives you the time to do the really interesting things that you can do with tools like BombBomb, with video like Ethan's talking about, where you can engage in conversation with people. So I think it first requires that sort of reframe. And so for this person who's asking about the niche industry, my goodness, if I could get every one of my clients to focus on a really narrow niche, my job would be so much easier in helping them get clients. That's the number one thing, the very first thing we work on. And it is the one thing that I have to arm wrestle every client for. So if you're there, be thankful.
Absolutely. And that is a quotable there. Can you repeat it where you said about the it's about compounding, not scale?
I think that's the whole game with this stuff, with relationships. You're looking to collect really smart people. You had Dov Gordon on, who's a longtime friend. And, I always call him the collector of people. He finds these really interesting people. He started this mastermind years ago that I've been blessed to be a part of now for almost a decade. And he just collects these really great people. And the compound effect of that for him and for everybody that's been associated with it is enormous. That to me is the game. And I think we get so caught up in, this idea that growing a business is all about scale. And yeah, there's a point at which parts of it need to scale, but scale the things that should scale and compound the things that really are suited to compounding. In terms of, how to make this practical, when I reach out to somebody and, it's somebody that I've identified that I want to connect with, I do use a podcast. I mean, that's one of the reasons that we offer that service now is I started doing it myself, and clients just started asking, hey, can you do that for us? Because I always wanted to have a place to invite someone. I wanted to be able to say, look, I want to collaborate with you, Adam, and I'm going to lead the way by inviting you to come have a conversation with me. I mean, you did that with me. That's how we got connected. You invited me to your podcast, and here we are. And I'm sure there'll be many more collaborations in the future. So that's kind of the way I think about it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people get caught up with LinkedIn as well, in that they think that, right, well, if I don't get the connection request accepted and then they're not responding and it doesn't happen instantly, then I'll just put that to the side. Whereas the key thing, and that's why I love, and I think that's a wonderful quotable there. It's a compound, using LinkedIn for the compound and not scale, is in not doing the volume of those connection requests, and actually being strategic about who you connect with, who you actually get into conversations with. Because I think really there's a lot of people out there that are talking about LinkedIn for generating clients and all that kind of thing. And yes, it can work. It can do those sorts of things. And Tobin, you will testify to that as well. But I think the real power in LinkedIn is it's those relationships and the potential to actually connect with other people that also serve your audience, but do it in a different way, and building those relationships that can introduce you to an entire, as I call it, sort of pond full of your perfect hungry fish, where you're not fishing on the side of a river competing with hundreds of other, fishermen, and there's not enough fish for everybody. You're kind of like in that pond. It's private, it's full, and you're the only one there because you've been invited in. And I know it can be a crude analogy because, a lot of people think that you catch the fish and kill them. We do not do that. It's a catch and release policy here at Think Like a Fish. Just always
catch again and catch again and catch again. I just want to double down on something here really quickly. The focus on sales, like we sell to windows of opportunity, right? We used to sell to budgets, but budget is an early pre-qualifier. We used to sell on value. Like if you put in $1, I can get you $1.85 back. Let's put more, whatever that ROI equation is. And that all exists too, but you can pre-qualify all of that stuff. What we're really selling to is the priority or the immediate need or a window of opportunity. You and I might be perfect customer, supplier, partner, consultant, client relationship, but I just don't have that need right now, or it's not a high enough priority, or I don't have the bandwidth to adopt it, or whatever the case may be. And so this long-term view, instead of going out and saying like, it didn't get accepted fast enough, I didn't get the sales call fast, like this old-fashioned funnel approach completely misses this idea of priority and the window of opportunity. Whereas if you play this longer game, you pre-qualify a whole bunch of people. They know that you can help them, just not right now. I like them. I trust them. They seem to know what they're talking about, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we've been in a podcast conversation, so we know each other and each other's businesses pretty intimately. You know, you can go deep in 45 minutes or an hour. And so it opens up this opportunity that when that window opens or that priority comes up, that you're the first call that they're going to get. So I just wanted to say, you know, even though you're playful about the catch and release, it's still a thing. You know, you're creating this, you're mutually pre-qualifying this kind of know, like, trust, understanding element, so that when the real buying criteria surfaces, which is, this is now pressing for me, you're the first call.
100%.
I want to say, to add to what Steve said, I love the his comparison of scaling versus compounding. And when you take this compounding approach, the relationship is already building, and you're going to get, I mean, I'll give you an example. This is how you get 80 to 90% connection rates, right? When they're running automation and stuff, the rates can be as low as 10%. 1 out of 10 people actually accept that stuff because it looks like junk. But when you're starting the conversation with people before, like these days, I rarely even put a note in when I send a connection request, because the conversation's already happening somewhere else. Maybe I reached out through their website, through email, could have been a Facebook connection. Now I'm connecting with them on LinkedIn, could have been in the comments on LinkedIn. But those get accepted at a very high rate because you're just continuing the conversation and the relationship building. And you can only do that in that compounding approach. Because if you're trying to squeeze 1,000 people down through this funnel and you hope to get, 3 clients at the end, it's not worth it, because you've just pissed off 997 people. You've ruined your reputation with them.
Yeah. Can I touch on, I want to build on that. I think that's really important, because I get these automated messages all the time through LinkedIn and frankly through email and every other possible way. And that person has now created the first impression. And you said, well, it looks like junk. They are junk. If it's an automated message that you haven't thought much about, and you're trying to connect with me on a platform where, it's really built around one-to-one, human-to-human connection. Now I know you've sort of shown me who you are. And I think it's a really dangerous way to go about it. And I think going back to Ethan's, humanize terminology. I think that's the key. And it's just so easy to get caught up in all of these hacks and tricks and shortcuts. And the shortcut is the human shortcut.
Always has been, always will be. It's a principle that will not change. And I think especially now, and I think obviously, LinkedIn, I do think they are really focusing on this, because they don't want the automation to ruin the platform, because people will just leave, and that doesn't serve them. And I know that there's things come out, and I've seen some stuff that you've shared around it, Tobin, for example, about they're really looking at, you cannot allow other people to go into your account, for example, and manage it on your behalf and all that kind of stuff. And so it really does say to me that, they are trying to keep the platform as a platform, a human platform, and not just filled with the bots and all the rest of it.
Well, LinkedIn owns some responsibility around this, because in November of 2019, they updated their policies and said, if you're using automation platforms, you risk having your account shut down. We'll give you a warning once, the second time it's permanent. But they're not enforcing this across the board, because I think we all know there are lead gen companies out there that are selling the use of these automation platforms. So it exists, and I see I'm hearing about people getting accounts shut down, but it's not everyone. So I think they own that responsibility. And then in January of this year, they came out with this new set of guidelines to be more human, to be more transparent. And one of their pieces was, they said, we want you to use your LinkedIn profile, and we don't want someone else. We can see when people are through IP addresses, even if you're using VPNs, there's activity that shows when it's being used by multiple people. That's not how it's intended. We're going to disable accounts. But again, it's not consistent across the board. So I think they own a little bit of responsibility and really an obligation. If they really intend to go there, they need to up their game as well.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of a nice, you know, we are getting towards, I can't believe the top of the hour again. This has gone literally like that. But it really does, to me, it emphasizes the theme I think that's gone throughout this. It's about business is not any really different to how it's always been, and that it is done between people. So how do you rehumanize it, to steal Ethan's term? And, you know, how just thinking of ways of doing that. Yes, you can have things in your business that will be systemized and it can leverage, and there's all these wonderful tools that we have at our disposal. But if we use that in place of the human element, then you know, of course it's not going to work, because ultimately, especially when you're selling a B2B, a service, a professional service, when you are actually interacting with people, you know, we're not trying to flog an ebook here. We are actually trying to serve people. And I think there's a very different mindset between people that set their business up to serve and help other people achieve a result, that it is, right, well, I'm just going to kind of go and there's nothing wrong with setting up an e-commerce store or anything like that. But it's a very different type of worldview, because you're not selling widgets, you're actually selling a transformation. And
Ethan gave us a big hint on this when he said earlier, he said, you know, I'm not selling this service, but I've been bought. And that is really the key. People love to buy, but we all hate to be sold. So we have to turn the table on that and facilitate the buying experience and do a whole lot less, maybe no selling actually, because you can still get better results by facilitating the buyers.
As always, there is quotables in this conversation that I will bring out, and I still to this day use one that Ethan you helped me with on the first one, and I talk about, you know, one of the reasons why I do this, one of the reasons why I started the first podcast, and one of the reasons why I'm taking it in the direction that it's to live my value of being able to think like the fish, to really understand people. So I am eating my own dog food, or as Ethan politely refrained me from saying, is I drink my own champagne. And it's understanding what is, I guess it's not just what's going on in somebody's head. It's kind of pulling out some stories, their thinking, the way they see the world, and what's going on with them in their day. Like what does the world look like to them, and really understanding that, and helping me understand what it's like to be somebody that works in, you know, professional services, B2B, working with clients, trying to win clients, attract clients, staffing issues, budget issues, all of these kind of things, they all add up. And it all comes down to the same kind of principle-based thing around, if you're going to have a successful business, you can't do it on your own. You need to collaborate, even if it is just you in the business. And you need to actually get the right help when you need it. And I think that is the thing, you need the support. And you can put all sorts of tactics in all sorts of different places to achieve that. But it really is about those fundamentals, and it's about knowing where you want to go, knowing when you're starting from, and it's then that you can choose those, you know, the right tactics to actually undertake the journey that you want to go on. Because if you're choosing the wrong journey, you may as well stay at home, like we all are at the moment in this lockdown with no choice. But when we are given the choice, let's go out and do what we want to do. So guys, it has been an absolute pleasure again to connect. It's been, 3 hours. I thought I would be dying on my feet, but I could go for another 2-3 hours. It's been so much fun. It's been great to connect with you all again. And thank you, like genuine, heartfelt thank you. And that goes to everybody else that's been here as well, because I've had good fun. I think I've needed this as well. Like, again, from that personal perspective, it's like sometimes things feel a bit pressured, and things are just like, you need the boost. And it's I think it's amazing with the modern twist that we've got these days with all of this. I've spoken to people from all over the world when I can't even leave my own front door. It's fantastic. Thank you ever so much, guys. So what I want to just do quickly is give everyone a chance to find out, just how to connect. I'll bring the sites up if you're watching. And is there anything going on that I know, Steve, I mentioned at the start, for example, you've got your book launch or your book service, which I advise if you've just got a seed in your mind, go and check it out. Is that on the website, or is there somewhere else to go to, Steve?
It's on the website. Yeah, best place to go is right there, unstoppableceo.net. It's got everything. Got the podcast. You can go find Adam and Ethan, and we need to get Tobin, and we'll get everybody on there. But you can find it all there. So yeah, go check it out. We've got some books we're giving away, so grab those. And
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And Ethan, bombomb.com. It's an easy one to remember.
Yeah. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I think I'm still the only Ethan Beute there, Beute. And so hit me up on LinkedIn as well. And happy to answer any questions about anything that we talked about.
Awesome. And Tobin, bookofexperts.com.
Yeah, love to chat with folks on LinkedIn too. You can actually have a free listing on Book of Experts. So it is still invite only. So we are going to look and make sure, we're looking at a small group of people. We don't try to judge who's the experts. It's more like we're just looking at that you're actually working in the same space. But we'd love for you to have a listing there, if that makes sense. And kudos to you, Adam, for bringing what an amazing group of people together. I mean, I feel blessed to be invited, and just looking at some of these other names and hearing the commentary earlier in the morning, it's credit to you and what you're building here.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Way to be a leader. I mean, you really have pulled this together and orchestrated an amazing thing. So kudos to you on your leadership.
Well, thank you ever so much. Yeah, I mean, I did it because it's fun, as I said. And I want to do something different, and I want to kind of take things in a different direction, take a different direction with the business, much more focusing around the whole, not just for what I do for myself in the business, but helping other people. It's all about collaboration. It's all about partnership. It's all about the rising tide lifts all ships. So how do we do more of that together? Because it benefits everyone. Because one thing I didn't mention when Amy was on, she's doing something fantastic. Like there's a pool of agencies in the UK that are all clubbed together to offer services to small businesses at a phenomenal discount. And it's just little things like that make a difference, especially right now when businesses are going to be the smaller businesses are going to be the ones that lift us back after all of this nastiness is finished. So yeah, if we can be a small drop in the ocean that sort of helps that, that's all my aim is. So guys, thank you ever so much for joining me. It's an absolute pleasure. I've managed to finish at 1 minute past 4, which is pretty, from my general ADHD timekeeping is pretty impressive for myself. So I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. I'm going to thank you for being here and keeping me to time as well, because showing up nicely. And yeah, thank you ever so much. So if you guys need to drop off, please do. If you want to hang around when I finish live and and have a quick chat, feel free to do so. What I will do is just end this, and I will wrap up. So that's it. Thank you ever so much for watching, for listening. If you are watching the live, watching the replay, listening in the future on the podcast, I hope that this has got you excited about a different slant and a different format for the show. And please, if you've got dilemmas, if you've got challenges that are going on, send them in. thinktank@thinklikeafish.co.uk. And I and another guest and or other guests, because I enjoy this so much, I want to be getting panels on in the future. We will brainstorm these for you. We will just come up with some of the ideas, the thinking. I hope you've seen it's that power of a mastermind. It's the power of actually getting heads together and really sort of coming up with the ideas. And sometimes all you need is for other people to force you to ask a better question, which is what I loved about what Jake covered there. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you're excited about the next evolution of the show. And don't forget that you can enter the contest that we are running alongside this, which is at, where are we? thinklikeafish.co.uk/think tank contest. Go and have a look on the on that site and see some of the amazing prizes that have been donated by some of the guests here and also myself. So that's it from me. The happy fishing is going. I'm just going to wish you all the best and speak to you soon. Bye-bye.